dragons did.
The threat of war looms.
There is no war so hateful as a war between kin.
I mean to fight this war and win it.
I will not be thought weak. I wish to spill blood.
And no war so bloody as a war between dragons.
The Dance of Dragons, a true telling by Grandmaster Munkin, being a history of the war of Targaryen succession between the Princess Rhaenyra and Aegon, second of his name, that nearly destroyed the realm.
The Dance of the Dragons. A stupid name for a Targaryen civil war where my ancestors danced away my birthright. Before the war, House Targaryen counted 18 dragons. By the end, we had 2, and nearly as few Targaryens. We would never be as powerful or as feared again. The dance began, as many dances do, with an old man and a young girl. The queen had failed to produce a son for her king, so he anointed his daughter, the Princess Rhaenyra, as his heir. But years later, the king remarried, and his new wife, Queen Alicent of House Hightower, gave him a son. Feeble and foolish, the old king refused to change the succession. He didn't even see how his court had split into 2 rival camps of blacks and greens, after the dresses that the princess and the queen had worn to some tourney.
Welcome one, welcome all to and sort of impromptu House of the Dragon Season 2 stream. Didn't really have this one planned, but I thought, let's set something up and let's dive back into Season 2 one more time and take a look at the good, the bad, and the ugly of the second season of House of the Dragon, which had a very controversial ending, to say the least. And now that the season has been out for a little bit and it's had time to kind of, seep in and marinate with a lot of us, I am really looking forward to hearing from each and every one of you in the chat as well. What do you guys think of season 2 now that you have had some time to think on it? What did you like? What did you not like? What did you think maybe could have been done a little bit better? We are going to dive into all of it this evening. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. Again, I've been definitely kind of thinking back on House of the Dragon Season 2 for a little while now since it ended, and analyzing the parts that I thought were pretty great and phenomenal, and also analyzing the parts that I thought were nearly close to abysmal at times. Season 2 definitely has a lot of problems as a whole, and I think that is very, very clear to see once you see the season in its entirety. But we're going to dive into it tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about everything, and of course, I want to hear from each and every one of you guys in the chat as well. What did you guys think of Season 2? What were some of your favorite moments of the second season? And, of course, what were some of your least favorite moments of the season? We are going to dive into it. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's see who we have here in this awesome chat. We got Ando first in the building, first through the door, first through the breach. What is up, Ando? Good to see you, my friend. Welcome, 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 welcome. We got BK in the house. What is up, BK? Good to see you as well, my friend. Good to see you. We got Kiwi in the building as well, the mod extraordinaire. What is up, Miss Kiwi Skirt? I hope you are doing well this evening. Hope everybody is doing well this evening. As we put House of the Dragon Season 2 in our rear view and hopefully look forward to a much better and more complete Season 3. Hopefully. We got Joseph in the house. What is up, Joseph Larkin? Good to see you as well, my friend. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Always good to see you. We got Bernie in the building. What is up, Bernie? Hey, all. Vala Mogulis. Well, a Vala Dohitis. Right back to you as well, my friend. Vala Dohitis indeed. All men must die. All men must serve, is the saying. It is the saying. And I know a lot of us died a little bit inside watching some of these scenes in House of the Dragon Season 2. Although there were some really good scenes as well, so I don't want to just crap on the season. I did enjoy the first half of Season 2. I really, really did enjoy. I will say that. Built up to some very interesting scenes and some very interesting moments. It's that second half of the season, and I think a lot of us have some problems with. But again, we're going to dive into all of that. We're going to dive into all of it. See what else we got. We got Ordonihue. What is up, Ordani? Hey, Jeremy, do you think HBO will listen to the fans when we say we want 10 episodes next season? I certainly hope so. I feel like 8 episodes is just, it's there and gone in a freaking blink of an eye, it felt like. And especially considering how long we wait for a season of House of the Dragon, you know, year and a half, 2 years. It was around 1 year and 8 months from the end of House of the Dragon Season 1 until the beginning of House of the Dragon Season 2. We had around 1 year and 8 month gap in between the two. So yeah, we're waiting a good year and a half, 2 years in between seasons. So when the season finally does come around, to only have 8 episodes, yeah, it's a little underwhelming. It is a little underwhelming. I certainly hope that HBO kind of gets their shtick in order behind the scenes and, you know, prompts up and opens up the checkbook, so to speak. Because again, I know we've talked about this a lot, but we know HBO is bleeding cash right now. They are hemorrhaging cash, HBO is, ever since the merger between them and Discovery. Their quarterly earnings recently came out, and they apparently overestimated their assets of around $9.1 billion over, which apparently led to around a $10 billion net loss in the second quarter alone, which is absolutely insane. They are, again, they're bleeding cash. They are definitely going to have to cut some corners to make up some of those losses, which I understand. They are a business at the end of the day. But if there is one franchise, if there is one IP that they own that they should not be cheaping out on, it is the Thrones universe. It is by far their most valuable IP. It is the IP that they have the most invested in going forward. They're going to be planning Game of Thrones spinoffs for the next 10, 15 years, probably, maybe even longer. So yeah, hopefully HBO hears some of the fan criticism and they listen. Hopefully they listen, because yeah, we need 10 episodes at the very least. We need 10 episodes, and this is something we've talked about a lot, you know, here on the streams over the course of Season 2 as well. And I know a lot of you guys have been noticing it just as well as we have, that shows have just been getting severely reduced in episodes over the last 10 years or so. You look back 10 years ago, you had tons of shows that were coming out that had 20, 24 episodes in a single season, like 24, like Lost. So many shows, Sons of Anarchy, The Shield, so many really good top tier quality series that had so many episodes per season. And they managed to get these seasons out every year like clockwork. There was never any year and a half, 2 year wait in between those shows. And it seems like the industry as a whole has just progressively gotten, I don't know if it's lazier or what, but yeah, we're seeing the series get severely cut down in episode counts over the last few years, to the point where we're seeing shows have 6 and 8 episodes, and that's starting to become the norm, which is unfortunate. It is definitely unfortunate to see. I very much miss the days where we had tons of episodes to look forward to, and tons of good episodes to look forward to. You know, just because a season had 20, 24 episodes in a single season, you might think, oh, there's probably a lot of filler there. And at times there were some filler episodes. But overall, it just gives the writers and the story much more time to breathe and really kind of flesh out some of these characters, some of these storylines, where we just didn't really have that time in Season 2 of House of the Dragon to do that. So yes, to answer your question, I really, really hope they listen to the fan criticism and some of the fan feedback and give Season 3 a full 10 episodes, but I'm not too confident. I got to be honest, I am not too confident, especially after reading some of Ryan Condal's statements after Season 2 aired. He said in one of his articles that Season 3 could potentially also have 8 episodes, although that's not confirmed yet. So I really hope they listen. We need 10 episode seasons. At the very least, we need 10 episode seasons. I think they should be doing 12 or 13 episode seasons like HBO used to do with their format. You look back a few years ago, to like the True Blood days, the Wire days, and things like that, Sopranos, HBO usually always had around 12, 13 episodes per season, and they have just progressively cut that down every year, along with many other networks as well. So hopefully we get 10 in season 3, but I don't know. I don't know what they're planning, especially after bleeding all of that cash they've been bleeding. But we will see. We shall see. We got Jackson Perez in the house. What is up, Jackson? Good to see you as well. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's go. Oh, yes. Let's go indeed. We got Vic in the building. What is up, Vic? Always good to see you, my friend. I love this part. I love that part, too. I love that part, too. Indeed. We got King Scotto in the house. What is up, King Scotto? Hope it's still not off to war at the end of season 3 as well. Yeah, I certainly hope not. And I think that's why a lot of people were, a little bit underwhelmed with how season 2 ended. We had an entire season 1 that was supposed to be the lead up to the Dance of the Dragons, the lead up to the war. And then a lot of us thought from season 2 on, okay, now we're at the war, things are going to start kicking off, and it's going to get insane from here on out. And season 2, for all, to be fair, season 2 did kind of start off like that. Again, I look back, I did enjoy the first 4 episodes of season 2 much, much more than I enjoyed the back half, the second 4 episodes. They started off with, a decent bang with Blood and Cheese, although they made some changes to Blood and Cheese that I thought were a little bit weird. I mean, I feel like it could have been done a little bit better, but they started the season off with a bang. They took a risk with something incredibly dark and incredibly tragic. And then episode 2 was probably one of the best episodes of the entire season. I think 2 and 4 are probably the 2 best episodes in the entire season. Episode 2 kind of picks up right where episode 1 left off, and we had some really great storylines. The Cordial Bowl was absolutely phenomenal, I thought. Perfectly executed. And then we slowly start to build up to the Battle of Rook's Rest, which comes in episode 4, of course, which was the highlight of the season. Let's be honest. Episode 4 was definitely the highlight of the season. So yeah, I look back and I really enjoyed the first 4 episodes a lot. I thought the first 4, they were on the right track. They were building things up. They were building storylines up nice. They were throwing some very interesting character development in there as well, which you very much need in a series like this. And then you look at the last 4 episodes, the second half of season 2, and it's completely disjointed, and it just feels like it's building up to something that we just didn't get. But we're going to talk a little bit about that and about everything else. But yeah, hopefully when season 3 comes around, it is going to be pedal to the metal. I know Ryan Condal has made some statements that they are going to be going all out in their adaptation of the Battle of the Gullet. They want to really give the Gullet the attention it deserves. And I hope they do. I mean, I don't have the same amount of faith in Ryan Condal going into season 3 as I did going into season 2. But I'm still definitely trying to remain hopeful for the future of the show. I love this IP so much. I mean, it's my favorite world. George R. R. Martin has crafted such an insanely detailed and rich world and insanely rich characters as well, that deserve justice. They deserve justice in their adaptations. And I feel like in season 2, they didn't always get that. But yeah, hopefully season 3 can kind of course correct some of these mistakes. I guess we shall see. We got Rip the Dodo Birds in the house. What is up, Rip the Dodo Birds? Good to see you as well, my friend. Hope you are doing well. We got Valdez family in the house. So glad you put me on to From. Just binge watch seasons 1 and 2. Yes, absolutely awesome, Valdez. I'm so happy to hear that, my friend. It really is such a great series, isn't it? And that's why we try to kind of scream that show from the rooftop during our streams, whether it's a House of the Dragon stream, whether it's a Shogun stream, or anything else that we talk about here on the channel. We'll be diving pretty deep into Alien Romulus tomorrow night here on the show as well for our normal Saturday night show. So if anyone has seen Alien Romulus, definitely come back tomorrow night and we'll be diving deep into that one, the good and the bad. But yeah, it's so awesome to see some House of the Dragon people getting into From. It really is, in my opinion, From is the best series that is currently running on TV, and the best series that has come on TV in a while, in my opinion, since the original Game of Thrones. It is that good. But yeah, so glad that some of you guys are watching it. It's really awesome to see some of the House of the Dragon people hopping onto the From fandom, and we welcome you. We welcome you with open arms. Welcome you with open arms. Season 2, the Stark opening, best start to a season ever. Yes, Bernie, absolutely. I am 100% in full agreement there. And we're going to dive into that right here as soon as I am done saying hi to you awesome folk in the chat. We got Susan in the house. What is up, Susan? Good to see you as well. We got crazy description in the house. Jeremy getting ready to go watch Alien Romulus in a few hours. Yes, crazy. Awesome. I am super pumped. I'm glad. I hope you like it. I hope you like it. It's an interesting movie. It's an interesting movie. I'm going to save my comments for tomorrow night's stream, but interesting movie indeed. We got Brother Blake in the house. What is up? Live from work. You're doing me a great service, sir. Well, that is awesome. If we can get anybody through their work shift a little bit better, I am super, super happy. And welcome, my friend. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hope you're having a good day at work. I hope you're having a good day. Got Henry Bemis in the house. What is up, Henry Bemis? Good to see you as well, my friend. I hope you are doing well. Hope you are doing well. We got Rockers in the house. What is up, Rockers? Good to see you. We got Misty in the chat. What is up, Misty? Always good to see you as well, my friend. Welcome, welcome, welcome. The Red Dragon, the Red and the Gold Dragons was the best episode of Season 2. Blood and Cheese didn't do it for me compared to the book. Absolutely, and I'm kind of similar as well. Again, I feel like they were going for something with their version of Blood and Cheese, and I just for me personally, it just didn't land as well as it lands in the book. And yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit about that here in a second. We are gonna talk a little bit about that. We got Shelly Love in the house. What is up, Shelly? Good to see you, my friend. We got Greta M in the house. What is up, Greta? Good to see you. Good to see you. Welcome, welcome. Hi, Jeremy. Love your commentary. Oh, well, thank you for that. I very much appreciate that. I'd be happy with episode 7 as the season finale. Well, honestly, episode 7 definitely at least feels more like a finale than episode 8. Episode 8 really just kind of leaves you with that feeling like you're waiting for the next episode that just never comes. But episode 7, if they would have ended the season with that one shot of Rhaenyra kind of coming out of the Dragon Mount with Vermithor behind her and Silverwing in the distance and Syrax right near her, the quote unquote the Dragon Queen coming into her dragons, that would have been a little bit more of a definitive kind of ending spot for a season, kind of letting you know, okay, Rhaenyra's got her freaking firepower, let's go. But even that, I mean, although that would have been a better ending than what we got, in my opinion, it still would have been just very anticlimactic and a little bit of a waste of time considering how much further they could have progressed the story and ended season 2 on a much more definitive note, like the Gullet or the Fall of King's Landing even. But no, episode 7's ending does feel a little bit more like a finale than episode 8. I 100% agree with you, 100%. Ando says, I really liked Aegon leaving to Rook's rest, the smashing of the cup, Sunfyre and Aegon bond. Yeah, it was really good. I know a lot of us have really been waiting to see Sunfyre for a while, and as soon as we get to see Sunfyre, boom, he just gets absolutely mangled. And if we're to believe the finale of season 2, Aegon is under the assumption that Sunfire's dead. Which is very strange. I mean, Aegon should be able to sense the bond with his dragon, especially considering how long those two have been bonded to each other. They've been bonded together since children. So I would have thought the bond between Aegon and Sunfyre would be a little bit strong now. So if Sunfyre did indeed die, you would think that Aegon would feel that, unless this is a complete change from book to show and Sunfyre really is dead on the show. I don't know what they're doing there, but if Sunfyre really is dead, that's a huge, huge change. Because Sunfyre is supposed to have a lot more to do in this story, like a lot more. And anyone who has read the books, you guys know exactly what I mean. Sunfyre has some big, big moments at the end of the dance. So yeah, that was a very strange scene, I thought, when Aegon says, my dragon is dead. I thought, does he just think Sunfyre is dead, or did he actually feel Sunfyre die through the bond? I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and find out what's going on in season 3. At this point, they've made a decent amount of changes to the source material that I wouldn't be surprised at anything at this point going forward. They have shown that they're willing to change some pretty big things. So who knows? At this point, I have no idea what they're planning at this point. I got to say, like, again, season two, I came into season two having nothing but faith in Ryan Condal and the cast and crew of House of the Dragon. And I got to say, season two, the ending of season two definitely has shaken some of that faith I have in the creatives behind House of the Dragon. I'm a little bit worried for the future of the show. But I'm trying to stay hopeful. I'm hoping they can kind of pull out of this nosedive in season three, for sure. How hard is it to just follow the books? And I think that's been a big backlash for a lot of the fans. Now, I totally understand they have to. I mean, it is an adaptation at the end of the day. A one-to-one exact comparison would be, be a little bit stale at times because we would know exactly everything that's coming. And the way that Fire and Blood is set up, it's left very ambiguous in certain spots. George loves playing with the whole unreliable narrator trope. So there is room to kind of, really go off and do some really interesting things in an adaptation of Fire and Blood. But when it comes to the main story points, yes, they need to stick to the book. And I feel like even with some of the big main story points, they're kind of going off script, which is a little unfortunate. I mean, maybe it's just me. I am a book purist at the end of the day. I love the books at heart. The book are my favorite iteration of this world. So I'm always going to be inclined to hope that they follow the books a little closer. But there is ways to go off script and make the story good. I mean, we look at season one. Season one kind of went off script in a few small areas, and in some areas it was even better for it. I know we've talked about this at length in terms of the character of King Viserys. He was kind of a footnote in Fire and Blood. We don't really get a whole lot of Viserys in Fire and Blood, but the show just completely peeled back the layers on King Viserys. And in large part thanks to the phenomenal performance of Paddy Considine. But we really got to see that character fleshed out in a way on the show that wasn't in the book, so much to the point where even George was very impressed with the show's version of of King Viserys, so much to the point where he said he wished he could go back and rewrite his portions of Fire and Blood with Paddy Considine's King Viserys in mind. That's how much George loved Paddy Considine as King Viserys. So there is ways to kind of flesh these characters out a little bit more on the show that maybe didn't happen in the book and still keep to the main overall story points. And hopefully they do a little bit more of that in season three. Because, yeah, I mean, you look at King Viserys in season one, he absolutely was, in my opinion, he was the highlight of season one. And I feel like maybe that's not a big reason, but I feel like it's definitely a factor why season two isn't as good as season one, because it doesn't have Paddy Considine. I feel like he really was the backbone of this series in that first season, not just as a character, but as an actor as well, being the veteran on set, probably a leader on set among the crew, among the cast and crew. So I think not having that veteran presence like Paddy, and we see how he is behind the scenes when he's on set. He's energetic. His energy is just absolutely infectious. An actor like that elevates the skill of actors around him. And I think we very much saw that in season one. You look at a lot of the scenes that Paddy Considine was in, he makes every actor around him better just by being there. And I feel like that was missed a little bit in season two with him not being in the season. But yeah, exactly. Why is my son in a shit rag? MK. Exactly. Why is my son wrapped in a shit rag? He just seems like he's having so much fun when he's on those sets. I mean, he takes his job very seriously, you can tell. But you can definitely tell he's, the quote-unquote class clown type. You can tell he's having so much fun behind the scenes. And that kind of energy is infectious. It's very conducive to the creative way of thinking. So I imagine Paddy Considine, probably elevated a lot of the performances of the actors and actresses around him just by simply giving off that energy. And yeah, it was missed a little bit in season two. I got to say, I know we talked about this in our season two finale stream, but the way that I felt watching this Paddy Considine scene in season one, I don't think I had this feeling at all at any point in season two. Maybe during Rhaenys kind of awesomeness during the Battle of Rook's Rest, you had some similar feelings. But in terms of just these gut-punching scenes that really, really hit you hard, I didn't really feel a whole lot of that in season two like I felt with this one in season one.
Gladdens my heart and fills me with sorrow to see these faces around the table, yet grown so distant from each other in the years past. My own face is no longer a handsome one. If indeed it ever was. But tonight, I wish you to see me as I am, your father, your brother, your husband, who may not, it seems, walk for much longer among you. Let us no longer hold ill feelings in our hearts. The crown cannot stand strong if the House of the Dragon remains divided. But set aside your grievances, if not for the sake of the crown, and for the sake of this old man, who loves you all so dearly.
Absolutely. Such an amazing scene. And not only just an amazing scene, but just incredible writing too. The dialogue in that scene was perfectly written. It's word for word perfect for the character of King Viserys, especially given the state and the point that he is in at that point in the series. He's at the end of his rope. He sees his family just crumbling around him, and this is basically the last ditch attempt of a dying man, not a king, a dying man, a father, a husband, a grandfather, doing his, pretty much expending the last bit of energy he has in his entire body, just trying to make one attempt to bring his family back together. And it's those scenes that I feel really resonated with a lot of us in season one. And I don't really get a lot of that feeling when I'm watching season two. I don't want to say season two is hollow at times, but at times it feels hollow compared to scenes like that. So yeah, I mean, Paddy Considine, what can you say about him? Just absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely, Chris, I 100% agree. He definitely should have won numerous awards for his role as Viserys. Absolutely. He was just absolutely insane. And yeah, he carried season one. I don't know if he carried season one because I look at a lot of the other actors and actresses in season one, and they also brought it. And maybe it's just because the writing was that much better in season one than it was in season two. But I definitely think that King Viserys was the backbone of the series, without a doubt. He was the kind of the glue that held it all together. And not having him in season two, I think it hurt. I definitely think it hurt. Now, obviously, you couldn't have him in season two much. I mean, you have to kind of follow the story. King Viserys dies, and King Viserys' death is the kind of catalyst that sets the entire Dance of the Dragons off. Very much like Ned Stark's death kicks off the entire War of the Five Kings. So these deaths you absolutely have to have in the series to propel the story forward. But yeah, not having Paddy in season two definitely hurt the show, I think. I think it hurt the show. Let's see what else we got. I feel like the Greens become, unironically, the underdogs in the dance. They have the least amount of dragons and least amount of allies, yet they manage to make a comeback. Yeah, and again, I saw some really interesting comments talking about the whole blacks and greens aspect of the show and how it's getting a little bit watered down. Some of these characters and some of this conflict is getting a little bit watered down. And I do agree to a certain extent in some areas. You look at the book Fire and Blood, it very much operates within the shades of gray in terms of there's no good guy, there's no bad guy, there's no hero versus villain, there's no good versus evil. The Dance of the Dragons is one of those wars that has good and evil on both sides. Neither side is just outright good. Yet I feel like the show is trying to portray the blacks as more as the good guys, quote unquote, and the greens as more of the, quote unquote, usurper bad guys. Whereas in Fire and Blood, it doesn't really have that feeling. I mean, depending on which side you land on, whether you're Team Rhaenyra or Team Aegon, and which kind of law you follow, do you follow Andal law of the firstborn male being the rightful heir, or do you listen to King Viserys as he named his own heir as Rhaenyra? So that you can argue all day, and that's usually, a decent argument. Both sides have good cases. But the way they play it in Fire and Blood, they leave it very kind of gray. It's very shades of gray. There really isn't one side that's just outright good and one side that's outright bad. But I do feel like they are trying to make the blacks the good guys and the greens the villains. And I just feel like that is doing a little bit of a disservice to the Dance of the Dragons as a whole. But that's just my opinion. Just my opinion. I guess we'll see how the teams are painted as we go forward in season 3. Will they continue to kind of make Rhaenyra out to be the good guy and Aemond and the Greens to be the bad guy, or will it start to even out a little bit? Because again, there's plenty of bad on both sides in the books. But I guess we'll see. I guess we shall see. Oh my God, I cry every time. And when he's walking up the thrones and his crown falls, oh my God, when Daemon gives him his crown. Yeah, that's a really great scene as well. Those are definitely probably my 2 favorite scenes of the entire series, not just season 1, but the entire series of House of the Dragon so far. And especially when you find out that Paddy Considine's crown falling off of him in that scene was not originally in the script, how that was just all improv. It really shows that Paddy Considine and Matt Smith, they both had a very good and deep understanding of the characters that they were playing, to know to kind of improv that in that moment and know that it completely elevated the entire scene. And it did. And it very much did. Where was Otto in the last scene? Anyone know? I think Otto in that last scene is actually in the Red Keep dungeons. And shout out to BK for pointing this out to me. We got a different view of Otto. Now, originally when we see Otto in the show, we don't really get this good of a view. We kind of only see him through the bars. But the production after the episode aired, they released this still. And we see a little bit more of the cell, and it is absolutely identical to the cell that Blood was in earlier in season 2, when Aegon goes down into the dungeons to kind of take Blood out himself. It's the exact same scene, and you can see the exact same bars, the exact same kind of iron strip right here. Exactly the same. So unless every dungeon in Westeros looks exactly the same, it looks like he maybe never left King's Landing. It looks like maybe Larry's or someone else might have snatched him up and he never left King Landing. Here we have the scene of Blood, and here we can see the same cell, the same kind of iron strips. So it looks like he never left King's Landing. It looks like he never left the Red Keep. It could be a different cell. Again, maybe there's plenty of other cells that have similar structures, and maybe he is somewhere else entirely. But just based off these photos, it does look like he might have never left King's Landing. And if that is the case, who took him captive? I think Larry's is probably the best candidate in terms of the best suspect. But who knows? Who knows? It really could be anybody at this point. It really could be anybody at this point. But I guess we'll find out. And that's another kind of big change from the book. And I feel like a lot of us noticed the absence of Otto Hightower once he left the series in season 2. I feel like some of the best episodes and some of the best scenes in season 2 are Otto scenes. He absolutely kills it in those first few episodes. And then when he kind of leaves and we don't really see him for pretty much the rest of the season until we get this shot of him at the very end. Yeah, I was missing Otto. As much as I'm not a fan of the character Otto, I'm a huge fan of the actor Rhys Ifans, and I feel like he is one of those kind of actors like a Paddy Considine, who has that kind of veteran status, who can kind of elevate the performances of people around him. You look at the scene and when Otto is getting dismissed as Hand of the King, easily one of the best scenes of the entire series in terms of just performance and dialogue. I was missing Otto after Otto kind of got whisked away and fired. But yeah, just based off those photos, it looks like he could still be in the Red Keep. Again, maybe there's another dungeon out there that looks exactly the same, which is very possible. But just based off those photos, it looks like he's still in the Red Keep for sure. Let's see what else we got. All right, now let's dive into some of our favorite moments. We'll start with some of our favorite moments, and we'll go back and forth. Yeah, Big Steak was not taking us with him to Old Town and introduce us to Daemon. That could have been pretty cool. Again, especially considering all of the not filler scenes, but kind of filler scenes that happen in the back half of the season. The plot starts to progress very, very slowly. There are a lot of scenes that could have easily been cut out that could have freed up some more screen time. I know we talked about screen time last week in terms of some characters just getting way too much screen time. And I think Alicent is at the top of that list. You look at the amount of screen time in season 2, Alicent has the second most screen time in the entire series behind Rhaenyra. Only Rhaenyra has more screen time than Alicent in season 2. And you look at all of the, some of the scenes that Alicent had in season 2 are just, they just go on way too long. I mean, there's one scene of her in the council chamber, and they just, for some reason, they do this very weird close-up on her face that lasts like 15, 20 seconds, and it feels like a damn eternity when I'm watching it. And that's valuable screen time that they could have easily, shown another character or another scene. And I think if they would have done that with a lot of Alicent's screen time, they could have freed up a ton of time to flesh out some of these other characters and some of these other scenes. So I do think the screen time was heavily mismanaged in season 2 in terms of who got a lot of screen time and who didn't. You look at Alicent's screen time, she got almost 3 times the screen time than Aemond did. Aemond freaking Targaryen, Aemond One-Eye, one of the most interesting characters on the entire show, only had 27 minutes of screen time in season 2, and Alicent had 70 minutes of screen time in season 2. So yeah, I do think that was heavily mismanaged. Heavily mismanaged, the screen time. But just my opinion. Just my opinion. But again, there were some really good moments in season 2, and I definitely want to start off with a few of those, starting with this. Now, as much as I wish we could have gotten a little bit more from Cregan Stark, what we did get of Cregan, I did really enjoy. It was awesome to see the North again. It was awesome to see Winterfell again. It was really cool to see the Wall again. Hearing that Winterfell theme music, which you guys know a lot of us love so much, it kind of just brings us right back to those early Game of Thrones days during those first few seasons. So I really enjoyed how the season opened. I love, again, seeing the North again. I just wish we could have gotten a little bit more of it. Now, in the book, Cregan and Jace go on to become incredibly close friends, like best friends, brother friends. Because when Jace first arrives, he instantly reminds Cregan of the younger brother that Cregan had previously lost. Cregan had a younger brother that died when he was younger, and for some reason, Jace reminds Cregan of the brother that he lost. So instantly, they kind of connect and become really good friends. They spend a ton of time hunting together, training together, and they end up forming, a bond, an oath of brotherhood, as it's described in the books, which eventually leads to the Pact of Ice and Fire, the kind of ultimate alliance between House Stark and House Targaryen. And we didn't get any of that, which was a little bit unfortunate. I was really hoping we were going to get some more Cregan. I was hoping that Jace was going to stay up north for the entire first episode, not just a single 6-minute scene. So I really did enjoy the scenes we got up north. I just wish we got a little bit more of them, because at the end of the day, who doesn't want to see more North, and who doesn't want to hear some more of this beautiful Stark theme song?
Duty is sacrifice. It eclipses all things, even blood. All men of honour must pay its price. North owes a great duty to the Seven Kingdoms, one older than any oath. Since the days of the first men, we have stood as guardians against the cold and the dark. But my ancestor, Torrhen Stark, began a tradition by making an offering at the onset of winter. 1 in 10 men from our household was to be chosen to fortify the watch. This is not a sentence, but an honour. A duty embraced by all who serve the North. Even by mine own kin. The North must stand ready. Winter is coming.
Winter is coming. And yeah, it's just all of that. Give me more of that. Now, I know this is the Dance of the Dragons. It is a Targaryen storyline, but the Starks, Cregan Stark in particular, is going to have a massive part to play at the end of this story. And of course, you guys know what I'm talking about, who have read the books or maybe who have just listened to the lore in terms of the Hour of the Wolf and everything that Cregan does at the end of the dance. He becomes incredibly prominent, one of the most important characters at the end of the show. So I thought it was really important to kind of set Cregan up early in season 2, and I just feel like they could have had a little bit more. Again, I liked what we got. I just wish we got a little bit more of it. Let's get a little bit more of this relationship between Jace and Cregan developing. Actually show them training together. Show them maybe sparring together, and maybe Cregan showing Jace some pointers. Because in the book, Cregan Stark is one of the most formidable hand-to-hand combat fighters in the entirety of Westeros. There is one very, very famous fighter called Aemon the Dragon Knight. He's not in this series. He's not a part of House Targaryen until a little bit later. But Aemon the Dragon Knight is known as one of the best fighters in the history of the Seven Kingdoms. And he says Cregan Stark is hands down the best fighter he's ever fought in hand-to-hand combat. So Cregan is not just a badass Stark, he's actually a very formidable swordsman. So I feel like they really missed the money in terms of showing us some really awesome scenes. Let's get Jace and Cregan in the courtyard of Winterfell doing some training, Cregan showing Jace some northern valor, which could have been a really nice callback to the very first episode of Game of Thrones, when we see Jon Snow and Robb Stark and Bran Stark and Arya Stark all in the courtyard training with the bow. Give us some of that. So yeah, I was a little disappointed that we didn't get some more Cregan Stark. Again, did enjoy what we got, just wish we would have gotten a little bit more. I did like some of the callbacks, though, that they did throw into Cregan Stark and Jace's meeting, in particular, talking about the Wall and Queen Alicent and King Jaehaerys visiting the Wall years prior, and their dragons specifically refusing to cross the Wall, which is incredibly famous lore within the A Song of Ice and Fire world.
My gaze is forever torn between north and south. In winter, my duty to the Wall is even more dire than the one I owe to King's Landing. I need my men here.
Whilst your men guard against wildlings and weather, the High Towers plan to usurp the throne.
My father brought King Jaehaerys and Queen Alicent to see the Wall. His Grace stood at this very outlook and watched as their dragons, the greatest power in the world, refused to cross it. Do you think my ancestors built a 700-foot wall of ice to keep out snow and savages?
What does it keep out?
Death.
Death. And while I do like that, this was one of my problems with season 2. I love the callback. I love the callback to Jaehaerys and Alicent and Silverwing and Vermithor visiting the Wall, which is a little bit different. In the book, only Silverwing and Alicent visit the actual Wall. Vermithor and Jaehaerys don't actually go to the Wall, but that's a fine change. It was totally cool to kind of throw them both in there. And to see that the dragons were afraid to cross this Wall was incredibly telling, as Cregan Stark says, the greatest power in the world refused to cross it. And that's been attributed to many different things. Some people think maybe it's just the cold that the dragons don't like. Dragons do notoriously hate the cold. A lot of people attribute it to maybe some of the magic that could be in the Wall itself. The Wall is not all ice and all snow and ice. The Wall also has a kind of stone foundation that has runes and spells that are carved into it to keep the dead from crossing. So that could have been affecting the dragons as well. But I think the biggest factor, I think the one that a lot of us feel, is that the dragons could have potentially been sensing the threat of the others beyond the Wall, and they did not want to mess with them. Because as formidable as the dragons are, and they are incredibly formidable, we have seen how dangerous and deadly the White Walkers and the others can be towards dragons in particular. They are very capable of taking out a dragon. So that was very cool. I'm glad that they kind of threw that little bit of lore in there in terms of the dragons being afraid to cross the Wall. And again, the cinematography, some of the shots were great. I had a big problem with the cinematography and some of the color gradings in season 1. It just felt like they had this gray tone filter slapped over every episode in season 1, and it really kind of hindered the cinematography at times. But I feel like season 2 doesn't do it as bad as season 1 did. There's still some color grading issues with season 2 in terms of, you look at some of the stills and you can instantly very much improve them just by messing with the contrast and the saturation a little bit. It instantly improves the shot. So there were still some issues, but overall, as a whole, I think the cinematography was much better in season 2. And it was really cool to see a much younger wall here. Now, again, this wall is not the same wall that we see in Game of Thrones. This wall is around almost 200 years younger. So they wanted to make a point to make the wall a little bit more white. And when we see the wall in Game of Thrones, it's got kind of that blue ice tint to it. Which will come after, weathering and years of it being older and older. So they tried to portray the wall a little bit newer here, which I get what they were going for, but, only 170-something years are in between this and Game of Thrones. So I don't know if the wall would have changed this much in that short amount of time, but I get what they were going for. And again, the shot does look good. The northern shots look pretty good. It was cool to see in front, north of the wall again. It was cool to see the famous elevator of the wall again. This shot, I really, really enjoyed this shot in particular. We get a really good shot of the wall here as Cregan's kin is marching up to the wall. So we got some really good shots. Great shots of Winterfell in the open Winterfell courtyard. We got to see the nice stone dire wolves here that are at the entrance of the courtyard, which is so awesome to see. Very big part of House Stark are these stone dire wolves. So I did like what we got. I just, again, wish we would have gotten a little bit more of it. Just wish we would have gotten a little bit more of Cregan. But again, you guys know me. I am a House Stark loyalist at heart. House Stark is my favorite house. They always will be. So I'm always going to want more Stark. As much Stark as they give us, I'm always going to want more. But that's just me. That could just be my bias because I'm a huge Stark fan. But yeah, it would have been nice to see them flesh out the relationship between Cregan and Jace just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. Let's see what you guys are saying. Yeah, what did you guys think of the Jace and Cregan scenes? What did you guys think? Cregan is very important. Absolutely. Absolutely. Cregan is he's going to be very important later. Very important later. For sure. Yes, I would have liked to see more Cregan. Awesome, awesome, awesome. The greatest swordsman in the world didn't have a sword. One of the best Hound lines ever. And one of the best lines ever. I loved Queen Alicent. Yeah, Queen Alicent was a really great character. She was a very interesting character. And Queen Alicent had such an influence on the population of King's Landing, and she was so beloved by the population of King's Landing that I'm glad that they even threw a line into season 1 where Viserys says that the city has been in a state of decay since Queen Alicent died. And you can see that. I mean, you look at how King's Landing was under Jaehaerys and everything, all the reforms that Jaehaerys enacted to really make King's Landing the King's Landing that we know and love. Jaehaerys is the one who actually built the entire King's Road, the main road that kind of runs north and south of Westeros to get from pretty much how you get from Winterfell to King's Landing. So Jaehaerys did a ton to really improve Westeros, even though his reign was, not dull. I mean, there wasn't any wars or anything going on during his reign. You had some small uprisings of the faith here and there, but in terms of overall, it was a pretty peaceful reign that Jaehaerys had, which allowed him to enact some of these changes because he wasn't always worrying about wars popping up left and right and rebellions popping up left and right. So he had a lot of time to really improve the state of King's Landing and improve Westeros as a whole, and he did. And after he died, you could really see the state of King's Landing start to decay a little bit for sure. For sure. Let's see what else we got. Trivial mistakes. The later seasons of Game of Thrones kind of killed the Winter's Coming interest for me when they fought the White Walkers, LOL, but I have to say Starks are the best. Absolutely. And that's definitely another part that I did want to bring up in season 2 as well. It's, in my opinion, I'm not a big fan of them constantly hitting us over the head with this prophecy and the White Walkers and the coming of the Long Night. I get it that, they're trying very hard to keep connecting this show to Game of Thrones. And in my opinion, I feel like it's doing a little bit of a disservice at times. Because I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I don't want to constantly be reminded of the greatest disappointment in the history of television. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm, again, maybe it's just my stark biased. But yeah, for them to kind of just keep reminding us over and over and over again that this eventually leads into the long night, or the short night, more like it, which, again, in my opinion, was the biggest disappointment in TV history, episode 3 of season 8. The entire series had been building up to the long night. This is what the entire show was meant to showcase. It was meant to showcase that the war for the throne was trivial compared to the threat of the others. And when the others eventually come around, it was incredibly mishandled and mismanaged. They were there and gone in the blink of an eye. So yeah, it's just for me personally, I don't want to keep being reminded of the greatest disappointment in TV history. But for some reason, they really want to keep tying the show to Game of Thrones, and I get it. They want to make sure everyone knows it's one continuity, but I don't need to be constantly reminded of the failures of season 8. So that's kind of my problem with some of the second half of season 2, and that was my big problem with Daemon's storyline in particular as well. I feel like Daemon's storyline started off pretty interesting at the beginning in terms of him arriving at Harrenhal, meeting Alice Rivers. We'll jump back and forth here in a minute. But Daemon arriving at Harrenhal, meeting Alice Rivers, it started off really good. I mean, for the whole hallucinations and Daemon being forced to confront the sins of his past, I liked it. I thought that was a really great storyline to play with, but it just lasted way too long. It dragged out way too long, in my opinion. This is something that they could have started and wrapped up within the space of maybe 3 episodes. But it goes on to last 6 episodes. For 6 episodes in a row, Daemon is tripping his ass off during his DMT spirit quest. And it started to feel like it was dragging a little bit. The payoff at the end, maybe it's just me, I didn't really enjoy the payoff at the end in terms of how everything kind of played out, in terms of Daemon putting his hand on the weirwood tree, seeing his future, them throwing Helena in there. I wasn't a big fan of it, personally. I just was not a big fan of what they did with Daemon's storyline in season 2. Now, some of the visuals I thought were really cool, and we can look at a few of them here. I do have those episode 8 stills still loaded up, I think. Now, some of the visuals, again, were pretty interesting. Like, don't get me wrong, it was kind of cool to see Bloodraven. It was kind of cool to see Daenerys. It was kind of cool to see. It wasn't really cool to see the White Walkers, considering the horrible prosthetic and the horrible CGI that they employed on this White Walker. I just feel like it just did not look that good, personally. But it was cool to see some of these other aspects. I did have a big problem with Bloodraven, though. And Kayla brought this up during our finale review as well. If you're going to show Bloodraven in the cave at this point, he needs to be way older. He needs to be way older. In the books, Bloodraven is in his 70s when he disappears beyond the wall. He gets sent to the wall, he becomes Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, and then after being Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, he disappears from beyond the wall one day during arranging. But again, in the books, he's in his 70s when he disappears beyond the wall. So if they are going to show a Bloodraven that is already in the Weirwood Tree, this should have been a Bloodraven that should have been in his 70s. So just for continuity purposes, it was a mistake that they could have easily fixed. I don't know why they elected to go with a younger Bloodraven like this. It just goes against the lore. But some of the imagery was really cool to see. I definitely don't want to knock all of it. The Weirwood Tree looked great. The aesthetics, the effects on everything did look phenomenal. I did really enjoy seeing Daenerys again. It was pretty cool to see Daenerys. This shot, too, was also very interesting. And we were all kind of trying to figure out what dragon this was, because it doesn't look like any of the dragons we've seen on the show already. It looks a little bit like Sheepstealer. If you go back to the final episode in season 2, and we finally get to actually see Sheepstealer when Rhaenyra finally catches him, Sheepstealer has a similar kind of shape and a very similar wing pattern here. So if this isn't Sheep Stealer, I'm not sure what dragon this is. Maybe it's just meant to showcase just a random dead dragon, and maybe it's not supposed to be any specific dragon. But it does have some of the Sheep Stealer attributes to it. Here we see a shot of the Night King walking through the dead, which is most likely season 8 of Game of Thrones. And then we see Daemon falling to the bottom of the God's Eye, followed by the shot of the Red Comet and Daenerys birthing dragons again. Seeing Daenerys was great. I originally thought this was Emilia Clarke. It wasn't until after the episode ended where I looked it up that this was actually an actress named Ruby Little, I believe her name was. So the actress they got to play Daenerys looked just like Emilia Clarke. I mean, this silhouette looks exactly like Emilia. So they did pick a pretty good actress to play her. But the rest of the aspects of this vision, of this dream sequence, I just was not a big fan of. In terms of this part in particular, showing Daemon his future, I feel kind of takes a lot away from who Daemon is as a character. Daemon is the rogue prince. He is the prince of the city. He is, prophecy, vision, having this special destiny. It just goes against everything that Daemon is. And I feel like they're kind of trying to turn Daemon into your average run-of-the-mill hero, the hero that is redeeming himself. And Daemon is just such an interesting character when he's operating in shades of gray. And I feel like this is why Daemon is George's favorite Targaryen. George has been asked many times what his favorite character is. And he always kind of starts off by saying, oh, like, that's like asking who my favorite child is. But he always ends up bringing Daemon Targaryen in terms of one of the Targaryens that he admires the most. And it's because of that rogue prince nature. Daemon is the second son. He has a lot more freedom. He's not beholden to the crown or to responsibilities. He has freedom to be the rogue prince. And I feel like now that Daemon knows he has this kind of special destiny waiting for him, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but personally, I feel like it takes away from who Daemon is as a character, and it kind of fundamentally changes who Daemon is as a character. So it's going to be interesting to see Daemon in season 3. Will we see that kind of rogue prince Daemon ever return? Or will we start to see Daemon that is forever going to be making choices to get closer to this moment? Because that's the thing. When you know your destiny and you know what is ahead of you, it is going to impact your choices from there to there. In terms of how Daemon eventually gets to this moment, he is going to always have this moment in his mind. This is something he is always going to be thinking about. So I feel like, I don't know, it just for me personally, again, it just takes a little bit away from the character of Daemon. This is not the rogue prince that I know personally. I get what they were trying to go for. I just feel like it kind of dumbs Daemon down in terms of into your average, everyday, run-of-the-mill hero with a redemption arc. And I feel like Daemon is much better when he's just operating in those shades of gray. But again, interesting choices. My problem with the whole vision thing, I think, was at the end with Helena and Aemond. I really enjoyed this scene between Helena and Aemond, on the surface. But then when I started to think about the overall kind of consequences of this scene, very similar to Aemond already knowing his destiny, it's going to be interesting to see how that impacts Aemond's decisions going forward. Is Aemond going to be making decisions to try and avoid that very moment? It's going to be very interesting to see how he plays it going forward. I know, right, MK? You guys play a drinking game off how many times I say interesting. You guys will be hammered by the time this stream ends. Absolutely, my friend. You guys will be hammered by the time the stream's over. Let's see. But no, again, the dialogue here was good. It was kind of cool to see Helena kind of sticking it to Aemond in this moment. And we do see a very different and a very scared Aemond here in this scene. But my problem with it was the way that they portray Helena in this scene. Now, up until this point, I've been enjoying the Dragon Dreamer aspect of Helena. I feel like that's been a very interesting addition to her character because they've been playing it very kind of ambiguous up until this point, where she's kind of spouting these kind of word salad prophetic dreams that she's having, but she's not outright saying what is going to happen. So it leaves us as the audience to think that these dreams that she's having are a little bit ambiguous, that maybe it's kind of hard to interpret some of these dreams that she is having, the beast beneath the boards type thing, instead of just saying, hey, Meleys is going to burst up from beneath the floor. But then they kind of completely just throw that right out of the window. And in terms of character development, it was just a horrible choice, in my opinion, to portray Helena as someone who is having these very ambiguous dreams, maybe not fully understanding what she's seeing, to all of a sudden coming off like she's just all-knowing. She kind of came off like Bran Stark in this scene, season 8 Bran Stark, in terms of that all-knowing aspect, where she goes from, again, spouting very incoherent and half-complete prophetic visions of the future, to all of a sudden kind of laying out word for word what Daemon's destiny is and what he needs to do and what Aemon's destiny eventually is. So in my opinion, just in terms of character development, it jumped the shark a little bit for me, because I really enjoyed the ambiguous aspect of Helena when she wasn't quite maybe fully understanding everything that she's seeing. But then in the drop of a dime, she just comes off like all-knowing in this scene. Like she knows everything that is going to be coming, and she's manipulating events to maybe make that happen. And telling this person who just killed her son, you know, mind you, the Daemon, who was responsible for the death of her son, or her daughter, her son, excuse me, young Jaehaerys. It's like, you do know this dude just had your son killed, right? And now you're kind of making sure that he knows that he's going to be the one to save the day. It was just a little strange. It was a little bit strange. So I just wasn't a big fan of Helena kind of coming off as all-knowing in this scene, where I really enjoyed the kind of ambiguity of her dragon dreams up until this point. But again, just on the drop of a dime, they completely portrayed it like she knew everything that was going to be coming, down to the very little detail. So it was a little bit of a miss for me. It was a little bit of a miss for me. But again, I get what they were going for. I get what they were going for. Let's see what else we got. And yes, exactly. Especially after her son was killed, how is her mental health better than before? And that's a very good point, Caitlin. It's a very good point. And I think a lot of us were very much looking forward to seeing how Helena was going to handle Blood and Cheese. I mean, we see what happens in the books, and Blood and Cheese absolutely devastates her. It absolutely devastates Helena, to the point where she never recovers. She never fully recovers from Blood and Cheese. It's an absolutely just nasty event that just completely has her shut in the tower for the remainder of the story, until her kind of the ending of her arc. But yeah, here on the show, her reaction to Blood and Cheese, her reaction to her son dying, to her being the one to choose who died, it was just very underwhelming to see her reaction to this. She's kind of playing it off like, oh, like children die all the time, it's no big deal. What are you talking about? This was your son that was just savagely brutally killed right in front of you. And you're kind of playing it off like, oh, this happens to the small folk all the time, babies die all the time, why should mine be any special? What are you talking about? What kind of mother speaks like that? So yeah, it was a little weird to see her reaction to Blood and Cheese. I was definitely expecting a little bit more of a visceral reaction, very similar to how Aegon reacted. Like, we saw how Aegon reacted, and it was a beautiful reaction to Jaehaerys' death. And then we saw Rhaenyra's reaction when Rhaenyra finally comes upon the severed wing of Luke's dragon and Luke's cloak. We see Rhaenyra just breaking down in this scene. And again, we see that just visceral reaction that comes right from your soul in terms of pure dread. So yeah, I was expecting something a little closer to this from Helena, but yeah, we didn't get it. We got a very strange reaction to Blood and Cheese from Helena. I was definitely not expecting that, personally. I was not expecting that. And in terms of some of the changes to Blood and Cheese, I mean, I get what they were going for, but I feel like if they would have just kept this simple and kind of adapted the Blood and Cheese that we got in Fire and Blood, I feel like it would have just landed a little bit harder. They set it up very interestingly in the book in terms of how Blood and Cheese happens, and especially with Alicent being present for Blood and Cheese as well, which I thought was a little bit of a weird change. I get what they were going for, trying to have Alicent and Crispin out there kind of bumping uglies when Blood and Cheese happens to add that much more guilt to them that they weren't there to protect Helena. Cole in particular wasn't there to protect Helena when she needed him the most. So I get what they were going for, but I just feel like the scene would have played much better as a whole if they would have stuck a little bit better to the books. And to do that, you need Maelor. You need the other son, Maelor Targaryen. And I love how George has kind of already dubbed Maelor the Missing. I get the feeling George, I mean, I know he'll probably never come out and say it, but I have to imagine George is probably not too happy with some of the changes in season 2, especially considering some of the statements George has made in the past where he has outright said he is not a fan of shows taking liberties with source material. In his words, 90% of the time it makes the show worse, not better. So I know we'll never hear it from George's mouth, but I have to imagine he's kind of disappointed with some of the changes in season 2. But that is neither here nor there. I just feel, again, when you're adapting a Savage event like this, keep it simple. Adapt it how it was in the book. Give us the shocking Blood and Cheese event that we get in the book, and give us that freaking line. I was so disappointed we did not get that very creepy line from Cheese. You guys know the line I'm talking about.
When Rhaenyra heard of her son's death, she collapsed. She considered ending the war right then, until a raven arrived from her husband, Daemon. Her son would be avenged. Whispers slithered through the taverns and back alleys of Flea Bottom. 2 men were found. One was a former gold cloak, the other, a rat catcher in the Red Keep who knew all its secrets. History remembers them only as Blood and Cheese. One night, Queen Helena entered the royal apartments with her daughter and 2 sons to put them to bed. Without warning, Blood and Cheese burst in, daggers in hand. They told her that a debt was owed. A son for a son. Blood and Cheese demanded she choose which son would be ripped from her forever. Queen Helena pleaded with the men to kill her instead, but they refused. Weeping, Helena named her younger son, Maelor. Perhaps she thought the boy was too young to understand. Or perhaps because the older boy was King Aegon's firstborn son and heir. You hear that, little boy? Cheese whispered to the younger son. Your mama wants you dead. Then Blood struck off the older boy's head with a single blow. When the guards burst in, they found Queen Helena still screaming, clasping her dead son's body to her, mad with grief. The blood of their children transformed a dynastic dispute into a war of annihilation. The grief and rage of losing a child could burn down the world. Either Aegon or Rhaenyra could live at the end, but not both.
Oof, man. It's just so chilling. That entire scene was so chilling the first time I read it, and the first time I actually saw that animation. And that video that's been uploaded on my channel for a little bit more than a year now. It's kind of the entire history and lore Dance of the Dragons. It's been getting a lot of play, and a lot of people have been kind of saying, echoing your sentiment here, Caitlin, as well, that little 20-minute animation, that little 5-minute animation, it's honestly a better adaptation of Blood and Cheese than what we got on the show, at least in my opinion, personally. I mean, if you guys like the show adaptation of Blood and Cheese, that is awesome. I am super happy for you. I liked aspects of it too. But overall, looking at it as a whole, I wish they would have stuck a little bit closer to the book in terms of having Helena outright choose between Jaehaerys and Maelor. And Blood and Cheese choosing the opposite choice, because it just adds such an interesting dynamic. Maelor, for the rest of his life, is going to have to know in his head that his mother chose him to die over his brother, and he has to live with that, and Helena has to live with that too. Which is just incredibly tragic, and you could see a trauma like that absolutely breaking someone, Helena and Maelor both. So yeah, I was a little bit disappointed it wasn't a little bit more like the book, but I didn't hate their adaptation of Blood and Cheese. I didn't hate it. I like the book version a little bit better. I like the book version just a little bit better. That's what made her guilty. That is what made her mad. The psychological trauma. Yeah, exactly, exactly. And again, I think that's why a lot of us were super surprised when we saw the reaction of Helena in the next episode. I was expecting to see her kind of huddled up in a corner when Alicent came into the room. Alicent comes into the room and she's just playing with her insects like nothing ever happened. Oh, newborns die all the time. What? What are you talking about? What do you mean? This is your son that just died that you just pointed to get killed. How are you just playing this off like nothing happened? So yeah, just my opinion. I thought her reaction to Blood and Cheese was a little underwhelming. Just a little underwhelming. Let's see what else we got. Well, yeah, that's the thing. They don't actually have to show Cheese lopping off the head. Like, you can't really just show a kid getting its head chopped off. That's when you do just a quick scene change to something else. But they easily could have adapted it exactly like it is in the book. They just don't show the actual head getting chopped off. Very similar to that animation. The animation doesn't show the child's head getting kind of lopped off. But it kind of, you get that feeling nonetheless. So I disagree. I think they easily could have adapted it just like it is in the books. But that's just my opinion. Just my opinion. Yeah, it's just so brutal. It's just so brutal when you see that happen. And again, you just see Helena as a mother forced to make this impossible decision as to what son does she want to kill. And then when she points to one, and again, then when Blood and Cheese choose the exact opposite, that is what makes that entire scene, in my opinion. It's because that child that doesn't get killed, again, is going the rest of its life knowing that its mother chose him to die. So I just feel like that aspect of Blood and Cheese is what makes the trauma and the impact so lasting afterwards, for Maelor and for Helena both. So I do feel like that was missing a little bit in the show adaptation. But I got to hand it to them for some of the things that they did do very well in this scene in terms of the haunting sound of poor Jaehaerys getting his head cut off. It was gruesome. It was absolutely gruesome. And again, you can't really show things like that even on HBO, but we can hear it. And boy, did they make the best of making us listen to that poor kid getting his head chopped off. It was absolutely gruesome, just the sound of it. And then if you were one of the unfortunate ones like me, like I usually watch the show with subtitles on just so I can always get the full dialogue. So I was watching this episode with the subtitles on, and when that scene comes up, the description of the audio is so haunting. It's like flesh and bone slicing. It's just such a haunting, haunting sound when you hear that kid's poor, poor head get chopped off. So I think the sound of Blood and Cheese and the sound of poor Jaehaerys dying stuck with me much longer than the actual visuals of the scene did. Because that was a nasty, gnarly sound, hearing that poor kid's head just get lopped off. And it wasn't fast. It was not fast. And that's one of the things that's another change from the book. Blood takes off Jaehaerys' head with a single swing of his sword in the book. Quick, clean, easy. But here on the show, it looks like they were straight up hacking at this kid's head, like chopping it off like with a saw. So it was gruesome. It was absolutely gruesome. So I will give them that. Again, I did really enjoy the first 4 episodes. I think the first half of season 2 was phenomenally done. Starting off with Cregan, starting off with Blood and Cheese, seeing the aftermath of Blood and Cheese in episode 2, the funeral, the Cargill Bowl was set up absolutely beautifully, and then them slowly setting up the Battle of Rook's Rest coming in episode 4, which was executed to perfection. I loved it. Again, I did really enjoy the first 4 episodes of season 2. It's only the last 4 episodes where I really started to, notice a lot of the problems. But the first 4 episodes were absolutely great. And again, even the Daemon storyline. When the Daemon storyline first kicked off, I was enjoying it. I was loving this aspect of Daemon and Alice Rivers. And again, I got to give props to Gail Rankin as Alice Rivers. She absolutely killed it this season. A lot of us were very much looking forward to seeing Alice Rivers on the show. She's a very notorious character in the book that does have some interesting and important parts, and she's definitely present for arguably the biggest moment in the entire dance that comes later over the God's Eye. So I was very much looking forward to seeing what they were going to do with Alice Rivers as a character. So I am very impressed with Gail Rankin overall. I feel like she killed it as Alice. I just wasn't a huge fan of how long this Daemon DMT trip lasted at Harrenhal, but I did really enjoy it for the first few episodes. And again, Alice Rivers had a phenomenal entrance into the show. The very first line we got from her, you instantly know, okay, she's creepy.
Always coming and going, aren't you? And I have to clean up afterwards.
You will die in this place.
Absolutely epic foreshadowing there. And honestly, that was the only foreshadowing we really needed for the God's Eye. That way, when we get to the final episode and they actually kind of show us everything that's going to happen to the point where Daemon knows everything that's going to happen, not everything that's going to happen, but Daemon at the very least knows how his story is going to end, and Daemon knows his ultimate role that he's supposed to play in this story in terms of taking out Aemond. I just feel like that's a huge spoiler to kind of throw that in at the end of season 2. I mean, book readers, we know what's coming. We know how Daemon and Aemon's story is going to end. But if you're not a book reader, I have to imagine that was a big spoiler. Like, I would have been a little upset if I hadn't read the book prior to kind of already know how Daemon and Aemon's story is sort of going to end. So I feel like it was a little too big of a spoiler for non-book readers. And again, it gives Daemon this sense of purpose and this sense of destiny that, in my opinion, is the antithesis of who Daemon is as a character, the rogue prince. It's just the very opposite of who he is. But again, there were some very interesting visuals, and I do have to hand it to Gail Rankin. I feel like she was phenomenal as Alice. She was pretty good. She was pretty good. I remember I was on the edge of my seat because I thought he was going to roll in front of everyone. Yeah, Helena was so wishy-washy. Why would she contact Daemon when her son was killed? Blood and cheese. Exactly. And I think that was a big question a lot of us were wondering, too. It's like, this dude just totally put the wheels in motion that ended up getting your son killed. And now you're filling him in that he's got this important destiny. You know what you know what you need to do. Yeah, it was a little bit weird. Now, I get it. They're trying to portray Helena as this character that's kind of looking at the bigger picture as a whole, as opposed to not looking at her personal wants and needs, which, again, I get what they were going for. I just feel like it just kind of takes a little bit away from the character of Helena. I was very much looking forward to seeing how Helena, the dragon dreamer, grieved and got through this death of her son. So for them to kind of just portray it like she wasn't even really upset, yeah, a little bit of a disappointment. Let's see what else we got. And if it was Daemon's baby, Sarah Hess would have been made these scenes more brutal. Yeah, I mean, there has been that kind of rumor going around that some of the writers maybe don't like Daemon as a character. And I mean, based off some of these scenes, I can maybe understand that. Daemon, his storyline probably was my least favorite in season 2, or one of my least favorites in season 2. Again, I like how it started. I thought the idea of Daemon having to face some of his past sins and kind of grow as a person, I liked it. I enjoyed it. But I just feel like they took it a step too far, and it lasted a little bit too long. I feel like the whole Daemon DMT Harrenhal trip could have started and ended, again, within the span of 3 episodes, maybe 4, not 6 straight episodes in a row of Daemon tripping balls. It just seems like it was kind of a waste of a season for Daemon. And I guess that's why some of those statements that Matt Smith made before season 2 aired, I guess that's why he made those statements. Matt Smith was kind of vocal before season 2 aired, and he said that you guys are going to see a much weaker Daemon in season 2. And a lot of us were like, what does that mean? What exactly does that mean? Daemon's going to be weaker in season 2? And now after seeing the season, I totally understand what he was talking about. Because we do. We get a weaker Daemon in season 2. For sure. I think it was a mistake that they made Helena a dreamer, since she can spoil big events like the storming of the Dragon Pit and the God's Eye. Yeah, again, that's why I really enjoyed. I like the Dragon Dreamer aspect, but I liked it when they were keeping it ambiguous, when she was kind of just spouting these word salad prophetic future events. But then, kind of again, at the drop of a dime in the last episode, they're all of a sudden portraying her like she's Bran Stark and she's just this all-knowing, three-eyed raven type character. So yeah, again, I just wish they would have kept it a little bit more ambiguous, because, as you mentioned, it does kind of spoil some things. People who haven't read the books, now everybody knows what Daemon and Aemon's fate is. So I feel like that is a little bit of a disservice to people who were kind of looking forward to seeing how this story was going to unfold. Kind of telling people the end in the middle of the story, I've never been a big fan of that personally in any narrative. Let's see what else we got. I don't like how Daemon goes to King's Landing himself. His agency becomes minimalized. He is still commander over most of the Gold Cloaks. If he shows face at gates, will open for him and man will die. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, that's one thing that they make very clear in the books. Long after Aegon takes the throne and Daemon and Rhaenyra are forced to retreat to Dragonstone, the Gold Cloaks remain incredibly, fiercely loyal to Daemon all throughout the entire story. So yeah, I guess we'll see if that kind of comes into play in season 3 when we eventually do get to the fall of King's Landing. I'm hoping that the Gold Cloaks are going to play some sort of part in that very capacity, in terms of, you know, them remembering their loyalty to Daemon, because that's kind of how it plays out in the books as well. You know, we even hear the Gold Cloaks saying, you know, Daemon gave us these cloaks, and they're gold no matter which color you try and turn them. So yeah, the Gold Cloaks remain incredibly loyal to Daemon all throughout. Just think about your kids misbehaving, then blood and cheese doesn't seem so bad, LOLs. Well, I can't speak to that myself. Again, I do not have children, so I cannot speak to that personally. But just, I mean, if I did have children, yeah, blood and cheese, it just seems like it's the worst thing imaginable for a parent to go through. I mean, it just completely goes against the natural order of things. Children are not supposed to die before their parents. That's just not how it's supposed to go. So yeah, I was expecting a little bit more of a kind of a little bit more of a reaction, I guess, from Helena than what we got. Let's see what else we got. The only thing from the first 4 episodes I didn't like was Rhaenyra sneaking into King's Landing. Okay. Interesting. And honestly, it seems like that scene did kind of come under a decent amount of criticism. I actually was one of the few that kind of liked this scene. I think Rhaenyra sneaking into King's Landing was a little bit iffy, to say the least. But in terms of the conversation that Rhaenyra and Alicent had, I thought it was some pretty good character development in terms of really just laying everything bare. Now, up until this point, Alicent has been very, very much convinced that she's been doing Viserys' will, that Viserys chose Aegon on his deathbed. And I have to imagine there was a small part in even Rhaenyra's mind that was probably wondering, did Viserys really cast me aside in his final hours? So that was one thing I did enjoy of this scene, was the aftermath of it, the consequences of this scene, in terms of Alicent coming to grips with the fact that she completely misinterpreted what Viserys was saying, which of course kind of plants that seed of doubt into Alicent's mind going forward. Because a big part of Alicent's kind of motivation in her entire being is her faith. Her strength of faith that she is doing the right thing, that she is honoring Viserys' wish. So when that kind of gets pulled out from beneath her feet, it completely just shakes the entire foundation of who Alicent is as a character. And we see her kind of character development from this point on did kind of reflect that, where she just slowly starts to unravel more and more and more. So I did kind of enjoy the dialogue of the scene and the impact of the scene. As weird as it was to see Rhaenyra sneak into King's Landing, I did at least enjoy the conversation. Because for Rhaenyra, this was validation in a sense. Because again, I have to imagine there was a small part of even Rhaenyra that was wondering, did Viserys really cast me aside? But when she hears Alicent talk about Aegon and the prophecy and the prince that was promised, Rhaenyra instantly knows that, holy crap, Alicent completely misinterpreted what Viserys said. He wasn't talking about Aegon. He was talking about Aegon the Conqueror and his dream. So for Rhaenyra, it was kind of the validation and the confirmation that she needed to know Viserys didn't cast her aside. So for those reasons, I did enjoy the scene, but I totally understand why it came under a lot of scrutiny. It seems like a lot of people didn't like the scene, or at least based on my comment sections. I can't speak to the entire fandom, but at least here on this channel, in my comment sections, this scene came under so much scrutiny. A lot of people didn't like it, which is totally fair. I mean, that's what's fun about watching this show, you know, seeing what scenes we like, what scenes we don't like, where we compare, where we differ. That's what's fun about the show, and that's what's fun about talking about it. But yeah, the spoilers are strong. Absolutely, Endo. The Helena spoilers are strong. Let's see what else we done. And I do get a little bit of this as well at times. As Ando says, the writers think that casual viewers are dumb. It's sad. And at times it does kind of feel like the writers are kind of holding the audience hand. And again, that's why I love From so much. From is the complete opposite of that, where it really just, it treats the audience like adults, and it challenges us as audience members to try and figure out, what are they doing narratively? What is the deeper meaning of this scene? What does this mean? And again, that's why I put From a little bit ahead of House of the Dragon in terms of the best series that is currently running on TV, because From it challenges you as an audience member. And at times, not a lot, but at times during season 2, it does feel like the writers are kind of holding the audience hand. Exposition is good at times, but too much exposition can kind of come off like you're holding the audience hand at times. Show us, don't tell us, is my big thing. But that's just me. That is just me. But again, I don't want to just completely bash on it, because I really did enjoy the first 4 episodes. Again, I definitely really did enjoy everything leading up to the Battle of Rook's Rest and the Battle of Rook's Rest itself. And I guess, and this scene in particular. This scene does take place in episode 4. And again, I did like Rhaenys in season 2 in terms of the character development that they gave to Rhaenys leading up to Rook's Rest. Very good. Very, very well done, I thought. I was hoping that they were going to give Rhaenys some more screen time in these first 4 episodes, considering what was coming in episode 4. And that was the thing. Coming into season 2, all of us knew that the Battle of Rook's Rest was coming in episode 4. And I feel like that can kind of be a little bit of a disservice when you know exactly when and where a big moment is going to happen. And that's one of the big reasons why I just completely unfollowed just about every House of the Dragon account on Twitter, especially those freaking spoiler accounts that just throw out spoilers all the time in these kind of early takes. At the end of the day, I think those accounts do more harm to the fandom overall than good, but that's just my opinion. Because it's a little bit better to not always know what's going to be coming. I mean, all of us knew the Battle of Rook's Rest was coming in episode 4, so we were all expecting it. And when you're expecting something, it can kind of take away from the dramatic impact of it sometimes. But I will say the execution of the Battle of Rook's Rest was great. It was really good. It was a great adaptation, I thought. I really like some of the changes that they actually made to that in terms of the change between Aemond and Aegon, having Aemond just outright blast Aegon out of the sky. That was very interesting. They had been kind of setting up this rivalry between Aemond and Aegon prior to that. And again, just before I kind of go too far forward, I love this scene too. I absolutely loved this scene between Rhaenys and Alan of Hull. And speaking of like characters that were just big probably in season 2 as a whole, Alan of Hull is one of my, if not my MVP of season 2. Abubakar Salim has been probably my favorite new addition to the cast, apart from Cregan Stark. I just feel like he made the most of the screen time that he had. He didn't have a whole lot of screen time, but the screen time that Alan did have, he completely knocked it out of the park with every scene that he was in, leading up to that very big culminative scene in the final episode between him and Corlys, where Alan is finally getting a chance to tell Corlys exactly how he feels and lay all of this at his feet. And it was just such a rewarding scene. It was probably the best payoff for a character arc in season 2, in my opinion. Just absolutely phenomenal seeing Alan just just completely stick it to Corlys in that scene. And Corlys sits there and takes it like he rightfully should. And it was just great dialogue. It was great writing. And again, the performance of Abubakar Salim in that scene, top notch. Absolutely standout scene from season 2, without a doubt. So yeah, he was one of my MVPs. Alan of Hole was definitely one of my MVPs of season 2, without a doubt. Without a doubt. But going back to the Battle of Rook's Rest, we start off, we see the taking of Duskendale, which of course we see the father of Rhaenyra's Queen's Guard get absolutely beheaded, Sir Steffon Darklin's father, which kind of prompts Sir Steffon to, have a little bit of vengeance in his heart. He's definitely got a personal reason to want the Greens toppled. We see a really good, very good scene at the Green Council chamber in episode 4 as well, in between Aegon and Aemond. And I really like this scene. It was, I love the High Valyrian between Aemond and Aegon, where you're really starting to see Aemond stick it to his brother Aegon and letting him know that, yeah, you're the king, but I'm Aemond freaking Targaryen. So I really did enjoy this, and I definitely feel like this scene in particular was a little bit of payback from the scene that we got earlier of Aemond in the brothel, which was very much a callback to when they were children, when Aegon used to kind of bully Aemond. It was very much right back to that. So I feel like this scene was a little bit of Aemond kind of getting a little bit of payback on Aegon for humiliating him in the brothel earlier. So it was a really good scene, seeing Aemond kind of step up and tell him, no, I'm going to do what I want. I am going to do what I want. You had more pressing matters to attend to, like hiring your imbecilic lickspittles to the Kingsguard. So I really did enjoy that. This definitely could have done without this, as well as Ewan Mitchell pulls off the eye patch. Unfortunately, Matt Smith does not. He just does not pull it off. Maybe it's just because we're not used to seeing Matt Smith with the eye patch, but it just, yeah, I don't know. Something about this, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but something about seeing Matt Smith with this eye patch on, it just looks so wonky. It just did not fit. Where Aemond wears the eye patch super well. Like, it really fits him. Really, really fits him. We get some Weirwood paste action, which was a pretty cool callback to the original series, seeing Alice Rivers whip up some Weirwood paste and hand it to Daemon, which looks like it was Weirwood paste. I know it's not outright confirmed, but looks like it is Weirwood paste. Unlocking some more of Daemon's visions. Then we get this scene, of course, and I think a lot of us really enjoyed this scene. I know I really did. Finally getting a chance to see Sunfyre the Golden in live action, this beautiful, splendid golden beast, looked phenomenal. And I really like to see the bond between Aegon and Sunfyre in particular. And we talked a little bit about this throughout the season, but it really seemed like Sunfyre is one of the only characters that just truly loves Aegon for who he is. The bond between the two is very strong, whereas it's just very heartbreaking to see later on after how things kind of play out. But I really enjoyed seeing, Sunfyre and Aegon. Again, it seems like they had a really good bond. You see Sunfyre kind of bumping Aegon's chest. It was good. It was good. But again, Aegon made a big, big miscalculation here in terms of flying into Dragon Battle hammered, which was not a good choice. Not a good choice on Aegon's part. But yeah, we see the golden, splendid beast taking off, and then we get to Rook's Rest, where Rhaenys arrives. And again, this was definitely the highlight of the season for me personally. I feel like the build-up to Rook's Rest was built up really, really well. And the execution was even better. This was, you can really tell a huge portion of the budget went towards this episode, and it absolutely shows. But it was cool to see Rhaenys arrive at Rook's Rest and start just blanketing Sir Crispin's troops in Dragonfire, very similar to how it is in the books. And there was a little bit of a change. Now, in the book, you have Rhaenys arriving at Rook's Rest and seemingly runs right into an ambush where Aemond and Aegon both ambush Rhaenys. Here in the show, it was a little bit different, where apparently they were just going to have Aemond ambush Rhaenys. But of course, Aegon kind of throws a stick into that plan and arrives on the battlefield when Aemond was not expecting him. So Aemond kind of sits back and waits, and Aemon, if nothing else, is an opportunist. I feel like he saw this opportunity and he sat back and waited to see what was going to happen between Meleys and Sunfyre. And I get the feeling maybe a small part of Aemon was maybe hoping that Rhaenys and Meleys were going to take out Aegon and Sunfyre for him. So it was really interesting to see Aemon kind of pull back and just wait and see what was going to happen. And then he enters the fray at the right time. Love this shot as well too. It just reminded me, anyone who's had a big dog that's getting a little bit older in years, you've probably seen this exact move of the dog just kind of putting its head right down and just laying down like an old cat or an old dog. So that was a really cool scene to see Vhagar just kind of plop his head down. That was really cool. Very funny scene. I enjoyed. But here we see the fight starts to take place, and we get our first proper glimpse of dragon combat. And again, I thought it was executed beautifully. I thought the dragon combat was great, the choreography was great, and the strategy employed by the different dragon riders I thought was very interesting. And Eve Best even talks about this in some of the behind the scenes, where she wanted her dragon combat to be different from Aegon and Aemon's. Whereas when you see Aegon and Aemon, they're constantly spraying out fire, saying Dracarys, trying to get maximum damage. But when you look at Rhaenys and Meleys, their attacks are much more subtle and much more deliberate. She's not just out there spraying fire left and right. She's utilizing Meleys' speed. She's utilizing Meleys' claws to perfection, to the point where we see Meleys absolutely devastate Sunfyre with her claws. So I really enjoyed the different tactics that were being employed from the Dragon Riders during the battle itself, where we see, again, Aegon and Aemon just spouting fire all over the place, and we see Rhaenys being a little bit more accurate, a little bit more deliberate in her attacks, not just spraying fire all over the place. So really enjoyed that. And then, of course, Aemon comes in and just completely ruins Aegon's day. And you can just see the look on Aegon's face right before Aemon kind of blasts him. He knew. He knew right then and there that his brother was trying to take him out. This was not an accidental thing. This was absolutely on purpose. And even in the behind the scenes, you hear the actor who plays Aegon, Tom Lynn Carney, state that in this moment for Aegon, all of his deepest fears that he had about Aemon came true in this moment. So Aegon very much knew what Aemon was trying to do here in this scene, and Aemon does it. He blasts Sunfyre right out of the sky, and Meleys and Rhaenys kind of make it away unscathed. Then this is where it just gets even better, and that's why I really like the Battle of Rook's Rest, because it kind of slowly kind of builds up to a crescendo of chaos. And then from there on out, it's just one gut punch after the next. And it just kind of, the stakes just get raised each time. And that's something I really enjoyed about this battle. You see all of that happen between Aegon, Aemon. You got Aegon falling to the ground, absolutely devastating. That could have been the end of the battle right there, and it would have been satisfying. But no, Rhaenys has a chance to leave, and she says, screw that. I am not leaving. I'm turning around, and we're finishing this now. Great scene. Absolutely great scene. Really enjoyed it. Rhaenys turns around, flies right back at Vhagar, and they go at it. And they absolutely go at it. And it was, again, the dragon combat was phenomenal. And you see Rhaenys trying to employ a very interesting tactic where she tries flying under Vhagar and presumably was going to probably fly under Vhagar to come up behind Vhagar. But Vhagar, being the crafty veteran that she is, snatches Meleys up with her claws right as Meleys starts to pass beneath Vhagar. And the tangle ensues, and you just see him kind of tangling to the ground. Great scene. Absolutely great dragon combat. I was very impressed with this. Super impressed with this. Like the shot too, the shot of seeing Vhagar on the ground just stepping on green soldiers was very interesting too, and very much reminded me of season 1, episode 3, when Daemon and Caraxes are down in the stepstones, and you see that one soldier kind of screaming to Daemon, "Prince Daemon, save me, save me," only for Caraxes to flatten him like a pancake. So very much reminded me of that. It was pretty funny to see. And yeah, very terrifying shot, wasn't it? It really was. I mean, just seeing how massive Vhagar is on the ground, yeah, this is a very, very awesome shot. It was really cool to see just how massive Vhagar is on the ground when compared to, proportion-wise, when compared to a human that's right next to her. Absolutely. Absolutely. But then we see Rhaenys has finally had enough. Her and Meleys are getting ready to leave, and all of a sudden, Vhagar pulls off yet another sneak ambush attack, which was pretty funny. I mean, for the biggest and arguably probably the slowest dragon alive, Vhagar certainly manages to pull off these sneak attacks every so often and pulls them off pretty interestingly. And we see, unfortunately, the end of Meleys and Rhaenys, and it was just insane, absolutely insane. I think a lot of us knew it was coming, especially if we read the book, but seeing the way that it played out, this was it was a good scene. It was a very good scene. It sucked losing Meleys and Rhaenys, phenomenal characters, phenomenal dragon, but I will at least give them, a solid 8 out of 10 in terms of how well the dragon combat was choreographed.
Angos Meleys.
Oof, man. And yes, absolutely, Vic. The look, when you see Meleys kind of just look back at Rhaenys, yeah, the look was heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking to see. Ah, man. But again, I thought it was executed really, really well. Really, really well. Loved the dragon combat. The CGI was pretty good for the most part. And again, you can definitely see that a lot of the budget went towards this episode. And I'm glad that they gave it the justice and the attention that it deserved. I mean, if this kind of care and quality was made to the back half of the season, I think the rest of the season could have been a lot better. But yeah, absolutely. Meleys needs her props. She handled herself with Vhagar. She did. Meleys and Rhaenys, they handled business. They absolutely handled business. And again, even at the point where Rhaenys and Meleys could have easily escaped, gotten back to Dragonstone, Vhagar never would have caught them. But Rhaenys said, nah, screw this. I'm a dragon rider. I'm going out like a dragon rider. We are finishing this now, live or death. And she went for it. She absolutely went for it. So yeah, you got to give Rhaenys and Meleys their props. They were the some of the standouts in season 2, and I'm going to miss them. Definitely going to miss Rhaenys and Meleys. Eve Best was really good in the role. Really, really good in the role. And yeah, seeing Meleys Meleys got Meleys definitely got the better out of that tumble. Absolutely. You see them kind of tumbling towards the ground, Vhagar slamming against the ground, and Meleys kind of perfectly flies away, doesn't even hit the ground. So very graceful indeed. Yeah, Meleys had Vhagar working. Vhagar had to work for that. Absolutely, Vhagar had to work for that. And yes, this is what I'm wondering about season 3. Season 3 needs a big budget considering all the events that we need to see. And that's why I'm a little bit worried. I'm not going to lie. That's why I'm a little bit worried about season 3, especially considering we have heard them state that they are planning on ending the show at season 4. We're only getting 2 more seasons. And to think of all of the stuff that they still have left to adapt, there is still tons of battles that are still yet to come. Ground battles, sea battles, dragon battles, other big events. There is so much stuff they still need to get through, and they only have two seasons to do it. And especially if they're only going to do 8-episode seasons, they're going to, I mean, I hate to say it, but it looks like they're going to have to skip a lot. We saw what happened with the Battle of the Burning Mill early in season 2, and I wouldn't be too surprised if we see more events like that, where battles are set up, completely skipped over, and then we just see the aftermath of the battle. There's just too much. There's way too many battles that are still left. There's no way they're going to be able to adapt all of them. They're not going to have the budget for it, and they're not going to have the time for it. So I do feel like they painted themselves in a very tough corner, especially if they're dead set on only doing 4 seasons. I feel like if they were doing 5 seasons, I would feel a little bit better about the future. I feel like the future of the show, I feel like 5 seasons would give them enough time to properly flesh out everything that's still yet to come. But man, if they're truly dead set on only doing 2 more seasons and not even committing to giving us 10 episodes in those seasons, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how they adapt everything that's left, because, like you said, they got some really, really big events they need to get through, and not a whole lot of time to do it. But I'm looking forward to it still. I'm definitely still looking forward to seeing how they're going to adapt the rest of the story, for sure. And yeah, a lot of it is about to be done off screen. I get the feeling we're going to see some of that. Yes. Again, much like the Battle of the Burning Mill, I think we'll see some other battles have a similar treatment like that, where we'll see a setup to the battle, and then they'll skip over the battle, and we'll see the aftermath and the consequences of that battle going forward in the story. But in terms of them actually showcasing all of the big battles that are still left, I don't see how they're going to show them all. There's so much. There's so many battles left, and just not a lot of time. If they're committed to only doing 4 seasons, that is. If they were doing a season 5, plenty of time. They would have plenty of time to properly flesh all this stuff out. But if they're truly dead set on only doing 2 more seasons, yeah, they're going to have to pick and choose what they adapt and what they skip over. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. It's going to be very interesting to see how they handle the rest of the story going forward, for sure. For sure. And yeah, no more room for the Alicent filler scenes. I'm right there with you, Ando. I feel like Alicent, in terms of the mismanagement of screen time, Alicent's character was the most egregious. Giving Alicent 70 minutes of screen time in season 2 and only giving Aemond 26 minutes of screen time, the discrepancy is just absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But it's going to be interesting to see. It is going to be interesting to see. And absolutely, Tamara, 16 episodes left over a 4-year period. Bummer. Again, and that's a big point, a big part of why I think a lot of us were disappointed with us only getting 8 episodes. Is because we have to wait so freaking long in between seasons that when it finally does come around, it's only on for 8 weeks. 8 episodes, comes and goes like that. So yeah, I really hope we at least get 10 episodes. At least 10 episodes. I will send them money every week for 10 episodes, says Caitlin. I'll contribute to that fund as well. If there was a fund out there to make House of the Dragon 10 episodes again, I would absolutely contribute to that. Easily. But battles like Butcher's Ball, Tumbleton, and Gullet are the battles we need to see on screen. Now, yeah, absolutely, we need to see all of those, but there's still so many other. There's the Fall of King's Landing, there's the Dragon Pit, the God's Eye. There is so many big battles that are still yet to come, and they do need to show a lot of these big battles. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough with only 2 seasons left and the amount of big events they have before them. They have a tall task. They do have a tall task. I do think they're going to have to skip a lot of stuff, or at least condense some certain things. Maybe turning the battles of Tumbleton into one big battle instead of doing Tumbleton Part 1 and Tumbleton Part 2. Maybe they can find some kind of way to combine those two, which would be a little difficult, but possible. You have the Red Fork and the Fish Feed. They could easily combine those 2 battles. That's a little bit more doable in terms of just making that one big battle. That could easily be done to save some time. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. Going to be interesting to see. They should have made they should not have made the show if they couldn't afford to do it properly. I personally would rather not have it, so it could have been done better in the future. Interesting indeed. I mean, like when you're committing to do a show like this, The Dance of the Dragons, I mean, HBO has to know what they're getting into. They have to understand that this show is going to cost even more than Game of Thrones did to produce, just considering all of the dragons that they need to make into CGI. The CGI is what eats up a ton of the budget. It costs so much to get these dragons right. So yeah, going into this series, HBO had to know that this was probably going to be one of, if not their most expensive show that they've ever budgeted. So that's something they should have accounted for. And to hear these rumors, again, they haven't really been confirmed yet, but they do come from some credible sources. To hear the rumors that HBO might have kind of come up to House of the Dragon just 1 month before they started filming and told them, no, they can't have 10 episodes, they can only have 8. If that is true, it's just such a horrible mismanagement of your most important franchise at that point. They essentially kind of cut the knees off of the House of the Dragon production a month before it started. And this was all happening during the writer's strike. So they couldn't even change anything if they wanted to. House of the Dragon, again, they were able to film during the writer's strike because the actors and the cast are all British-based. They're not part of the US Guild, most of them. But when it comes to the writing for House of the Dragon, most of the writers are US-based. So even though they were able to film during the strike, they wouldn't have been able to bring the writers on to make rewrites. So if the rumor is true, and HBO told them just 1 month before filming started that they could only have 8 episodes instead of 10, they would have had no recourse to go back and rewrite some things to make episode 8 seem and feel more like a finale. So if that rumor is true, it's just a horrible mismanagement of your most important franchise on HBO's part. But who knows? Who knows? Gullet and Fall of King's Landing in episode 1, maybe. I mean, who knows? Who knows? Based on the way that episode 8 ends, it does look like the Gullet is going to be the next big thing that we're going to be getting. And Ryan Condal did mention that the Gullet is going to be coming super early in season 3. And again, based on where the story is, it kind of has to. We see season 2 end with the Triarchy heading for Westeros. We know that Corlys is heading back out to the Gullet to reinforce the Gullet. So they are perfectly setting up the Battle of the Gullet for very early in season 3. So will it be in that very first episode? It might. It might. They could very well have the Gullet happen in that very first episode, which could be a pretty interesting theme if they keep that theme going for the rest of the series, having each episode or having each season premiere on a massive big event. You have season 2 start with Blood and Cheese. You have season 3 start with the Battle of the Gullet. And then you have season 4 start with another massive big event. Who knows? Maybe even the God's Eye. But yeah, that could be an interesting theme that they could potentially keep going throughout the rest of the series, having each new season start on a massively big event. There's certainly plenty of big events that they could do that if they wanted to, I guess. Let's see what else we got. Yeah, absolutely. I think that certain events like the Storming of the Dragon Pit, God's Eye, Hour of the Wolf, Butcher's Ball, and Tumult in our events, we need to see. If they skip those events, I don't know. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. It's like some of these bigger events we need to see play out on screen. Again, if you're going to do the Dance of the Dragons justice, there's some things that you just can't skip. And yes, those are a lot of the things that you can't skip. The Storming of the Dragon Pit, the Fall of King's Landing, the God's Eye, Hour of the Wolf is a must. The Butcher's Ball. There's a lot of really big things that they just can't skip over. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they choose to kind of prioritize their time going forward. What are they going to choose to adapt? What are they going to choose to kind of condense and skip over? I don't know. But again, I wouldn't be too surprised if we see some more Battle of the Burning Mill kind of formats where we get a setup and then they skip over the battle and just show the aftermath. We'll probably get a decent amount of that for sure. Wow, what has she even done this season? Cry, slapped with a fish, get kicked off the council, pray, sexy time with Cole, betrays her sons, dip in the lake, go to Dragonstone, and be a traitor. Not like this. Yeah, again, I feel like Alicent is an interesting character, don't get me wrong, and I feel like Olivia Cooke is a phenomenal actress. She's really great in the role, but they are trying to, it seems like they're trying to keep the friendship of Rhaenyra and Alicent at the forefront of this story. And in my opinion, the Dance of the Dragons is more than that. It's about more than, I mean, in the book, it's not about that at all. Rhaenyra and Alicent were never even friends in the book. So that is strictly a show change. But it does seem like they do kind of keep boiling this thing down to a conflict between two friends, when the dance is meant to be more than that. The dance is about the fall of House Targaryen. The beginning of the end of House Targaryen is the Dance of the Dragons. And of course, the extinction of the dragons themselves. That is ultimately what the Dance of the Dragons is. House Targaryen tearing itself apart. It shouldn't just be about a friendship tearing itself apart. It should be about more than that. So I do feel like they do keep kind of returning to this Alicent Rhaenyra thing over and over and over again. And again, in my opinion, it's just a little bit of a disservice to the dance as a whole. But just my opinion. I hate Alicent. I'm sorry. That is totally cool. If you love Alicent or hate Alicent, that is totally cool. You know what we say. All opinions are welcome here. Whether you love the show, whether you hate the show, whether you want to point out some things that you think could have been done better, all opinions are welcome here. Or if you absolutely loved season 2 and everything that came with it, that is awesome. Like, if I know not everybody disliked the finale. I know it seems like the fandom's kind of split down the middle in terms of people that were a little bit disappointed with the finale and people that absolutely really loved it. And that's great. I mean, if you loved season 2 in its entirety, I am so freaking happy for you. I really am. I want everyone to love this show. I want to love every episode as much as possible. But again, I have to kind of be honest at the end of the day. I always promise you guys I'm always going to be honest with how at least I feel. And as much as I love the first half of season 2, I really dislike the second half of season 2. But if you loved it, I am super happy for you. That's awesome. Absolutely awesome if you loved it. And yeah, Goat was supposed to be episode 9. So old 8 supposed to be all that low heart anyway. Yeah, I mean, we did get these rumors anyway at the beginning of season 2 when it was starting to film that we originally were supposed to get 10 episodes, and season 2 was originally supposed to end on a massive big battle, which most likely would have been the Battle of the Gullet. And then we were hearing rumors that instead of season 2 ending on that massive battle, they pushed that battle to the beginning of season 3. And now, since this new information has come out from Westeros.org, stating that HBO might have approached House of the Dragon only a month before filming and told them, no, they can only have 8 episodes instead of 10, that might have been the deciding factor in pushing the Battle of the Gullet to season 3 instead of having it at the end of season 2. Because at that point, they would have had no recourse to go and rewrite things to fit the Gullet into season 2 because the writer's strike was happening. So yeah, it's a very interesting choice on HBO's part if that is true. Very weird choice, I would say. And yeah, how does HBO expect Aegon's conquest in live action and have the budget for it? That's a good point. A very good point. I mean, as expensive as this is going to be, something like Aegon's conquest is probably going to be just as expensive, if not maybe even a little more so, with some of the crazy big events that happens during the conquest. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I really hope Aegon's conquest does get greenlit. That is something I think a lot of us really want to see in live action. So I hope it does get greenlit. It does seem like the script has been going pretty well from what I'm hearing behind the scenes. It seems like people are excited for this series. So hopefully it gets greenlit. Hopefully. But yeah, Wolfspear, if that rumor is true, then yeah, HBO dropped the ball a little bit. HBO dropped the ball a little bit. They will more likely compact the show to a disappointing level like they did with season 7 and 8. And honestly, that is the one thing I'm really hoping they avoid. Because, yeah, I mean, you saw what happened with season 7 and 8. They kind of took what was supposed to be one big season, cut it down into 2, and we saw the pacing. It was very wonky. I mean, season 8 of Game of Thrones was littered with problems from episode 3 on. And I mean, it started off good. Like when I look back at season 8 of Game of Thrones, the first 2 episodes of season 8 weren't bad. They weren't too bad at all. I feel like they set up the Battle of the Long Night pretty decent, but then episode 3 comes around and it was just all downhill from there. But season 8, episode 2 in particular, is one of my favorite episodes. Personally, I thought that was a great episode to set up the battle. But from there on out, the execution was just incredibly flawed. Let's see what else we got. You'd think they would be pretty good at dragon animation by now. And that's the thing. That's where technology can be a gift and a curse at the same time, because the technology continues to advance year after year after year. So the technology that they're using to animate the dragons now is vastly different from the technology they were using during Game of Thrones. So as the technology continues to improve, they're constantly having to relearn and rework how to use this new technology. So again, advancements in tech can be a gift and a curse at the same time, because the format that they use for animating the dragons now, again, it's vastly different from what they did during the Game of Thrones days. The technology has just come a long way since then. So yeah, could be a gift and a curse. Could be a gift and a curse. What was the WB flop that caused this? This is before the Suicide Squad game lost them 200 mil. Yes, this was HBO actually just recently unveiled their quarterly earnings and their quarterly report. Apparently, they overestimated their assets, their TV assets. They overestimated by around $9.1 billion, not million. $billion, which apparently led to around a $10 billion net loss in Q2 alone. So if that is true, which it seems like those numbers are legit, they have been bleeding cash since the merger with Discovery. And that could be a big reason why the budget was kind of cut 1 month before filming. It looks like they're trying everything they can to stop hemorrhaging cash. Which again, as a business, from the business standpoint, I totally understand that. A business needs to make up losses, and the only way a studio makes up losses like this is by cutting funding here and there, canceling certain shows here and there. But again, if there's one series, if there's one IP that they should not be cheaping out on, it's this one. Considering how much they have invested in A Song of Ice and Fire going forward, considering all of the different, they have 7 different A Song of Ice and Fire shows that are currently in pre-production, in development, that are hoping to get greenlit. 7 different shows, 4 of them animated, 3 of them live action. So they are deeply invested in the future of this Game of Thrones universe that they are setting up. So if there's one show they should not be cheaping out on, it's House of the Dragon. But yeah, it looks like they've been hemorrhaging cash ever since the merger. So who knows? Who knows? But let's get into some of this nitty gritty. I want to hear from you guys in the chat. Now, when you look back on season 2 as a whole, what is your favorite moment from season 2? And what is your least favorite moment from season 2? I want to hear from you guys in the chat. Favorite moment overall, or just favorite episode overall, and least favorite moment overall, or least favorite episode overall. I want to hear from you guys. What was your favorite and your least favorite? What stood out for you guys in season 2? You guys know me. I mean, for me, it's Cregan Stark. Cregan Stark actually getting a chance to see the North again, seeing the Wall again, seeing Winterfell again. This was definitely my highlight of the second season. I really enjoyed the Battle of Rook's Rest too. That was really awesome. Seeing Paddy Considine return was phenomenal. Any excuse to see Paddy Considine again was great. So I would probably put those as my top 3 favorite moments. The introduction of Cregan Stark, seeing the North again, the Battle of Rook's Rest, and seeing Paddy Considine again. Those are probably my top 3 favorite moments from season 2. My least favorite moment from season 2, unfortunately, is the Daemon storyline. I'm just not a big fan of what they did with Daemon's character in season 2. So that's my favorites and my least favorite of season 2. But would love to hear from you guys. What are some of your favorites? Aegon and Otto, easily my favorite. Alicent and Rhaenyra, final scene is the worst in the series. Ooh, interesting. Interesting. And I guess I should give some props, again, to Tom Glencarney as Aegon and Abubakar Salim as Alan of Hull. Those 2 characters were phenomenal this year in terms of just acting skills and acting chops, how they delivered their lines, their presence on screen. Tom Glencarney and Abubakar Salim absolutely killed it in season 2 and were definitely some of the standouts, without a doubt. Does George R. R. Martin have a say in the cutting of episodes moving forward? No, he doesn't, unfortunately. And George is he can give advice as to where he would want them to go. He can give them pointers and advice and things like that. But at the end of the day, he has zero authority on the creative decisions. He can make all the suggestions in the world, but at the end of the day, it is up to HBO and Ryan Condal. They have the final say on what happens on the show. George doesn't have any creative input legally. Again, he can make suggestions, but in terms of approving or not approving, no, none of it is in George's hands. And that just goes back to whatever kind of contract he signed with HBO. And we're seeing something, some similar things with some other series. With apparently, I'm not a big fan of Harry Potter. I don't know a whole lot about Harry Potter. I've never read the books or anything like that, so I'm not very well versed on the world. But from what I've heard, the up and coming Harry Potter show that's going to be on HBO. Apparently, J.K. Rowling signed some kind of deal that gives her some level of creative control over the show, so she can kind of approve and disapprove what they're going to be doing. And I wouldn't be too surprised if we start seeing some authors writing similar clauses in their contracts going forward where they hope to retain some small level of creative control, not full-on creative control. I don't think any studio will ever be okay with that. But I wouldn't be too surprised if we start seeing some authors having their books adapted and putting something in their clause that gives them a small amount of creative control, because that's where George kind of ultimately went wrong. He signed over the entire on-screen rights to HBO. HBO has the right to do anything they want in the world of Westeros on screen, whether George likes it or not. So that can be some of the downfall of some of those contracts, unfortunately. Best line, my cock popped like a sausage. Yeah, like a sausage on a spit. That was hilarious. That was absolutely hilarious. Aegon the Dragon Cockless, unfortunately. From Aegon the Dragon Cock to Aegon the Dragon Cockless. Too bad. Poor guy. You definitely feel for him. You definitely feel for him. Colin says Rook's Rest. Awesome. Awesome moment. Definitely one of my favorites as well. Episode 4 for Greek Girl. Love it. Love it. Love it. Aegon yelling abed to Cole. He was not lying. Nice. Very nice. Least favorite Daemon tripping visions from Wolfspear. Awesome. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Crazy Matt says episode 4 I think was the best, maybe 5. Blood and Cheese irritated me right off the bat. Okay, interesting. That's cool. That is totally cool. Yeah, he was high the whole season. Absolutely, just blazed on Milk of the Poppy. Favorite was Cregan Stark from Wolfspear. Awesome. Definitely among my favorites as well, for sure. Favorite scenes are the Aegon scenes. He was awesome this season. Him and Larry's Sunfyre and Otto, perfection. Absolutely ripped the dodo birds. And again, that's definitely one of the better scenes in season 2 in terms of the scene between Aegon and Otto when Otto is getting dismissed as Hand of the King. Phenomenal scene. Absolutely phenomenal scene. And yeah, I got to hand it to Tom Glencarney. He was great. He was great this season. One of the better standout performances, I thought. Hated any and all scenes where Rhaenyra and Alicent were in the same room. Okay, interesting. And I know you're not alone. Again, it seems like a lot of these Alicent and Rhaenyra scenes came under heavy scrutiny from some of the fans, it seems, which is understandable and totally fair. Worst moment was the Alicent and Rhaenyra meeting in episode 8. Was because they ruined Alicent's character from the book, having her betray her family. Yeah, I can see that. That I can definitely see. And yes, I mean, when you look at the character of Alicent and Rhaenyra, their on-screen characters at this point are completely different from their book counterparts. Just completely different. So I can understand that. Osmond Hull says least favorite is probably one of the contrived Rhaenyra and Alicent meetings. Awesome. Yeah, see, again, a lot of people did not really like those scenes. You guys aren't alone. You got a lot of people didn't like those. And again, totally cool. Let's see what else we got. Ulf scenes were cool too, says Ando. Yeah, I enjoyed some of the Ulf scenes. And again, you guys have heard me say this in the past, I'm sure, but that was the one aspect of House of the Dragon that I feel the show was missing. You look back on Game of Thrones, and one of the things that made Game of Thrones so good was some of the comedic levity that was thrown into the show every once in a while. Game of Thrones was a very dark show at times, so it really pays to have these comedic levity moments when you have really just funny dialogue from a character like Tyrion or Bronn or the Hound. And I feel like that was the one aspect that was missing from House of the Dragon, having that one character that can be that comedic levity. And I'm hoping Ulf can fill that role going forward, because he definitely has the comedy bit down. The dude's hilarious. The dude is absolutely hilarious. And he's another one that seems to be having an absolute blast on set filming this show. So I'm hoping Ulf the White can kind of fill a similar role where he can offer some comedic levity from time to time and offer some really quick dialogue and some witty lines. Because again, that was the one aspect I feel House of the Dragon was missing, having that one good comedic levity character. Cargo Brothers fight was my favorite scene, and Alicent floating down river was the worst, says Misty. Ooh, interesting. Very interesting. And yeah, I did really enjoy the Cargo Bowl. I think episode 2 and episode 4 are probably the two best episodes in the season in terms of just how the episodes are structured, the story that is told in those episodes, and the payoff of both of those episodes was great. You got everything leading up to the Cargo Bowl in episode 2 with a beautiful payoff with that just incredibly emotional and heartfelt scene between those two brothers. And then you have a great build up to the Battle of Rook's Rest and a beautiful execution. So yeah, episode 2 and 4 are definitely the two best episodes in my opinion. Alicent floating down the river was the worst. Okay, interesting. Yeah, a lot of people saw that scene and they were instantly kind of comparing it to the whole Arthurian Lady of the Lake type thing. And it definitely had some Lady of the Lake vibes. I also saw a lot of people thinking that Alicent was going into the river to kill herself. Seems like a lot of people thought that she was going in there to commit seppuku, which is interesting. I mean, at that point, she was at such a rock bottom. I can totally understand why some audience members thought that she might have been going into the river to end it. I totally understand people thinking that. Oh my God, I loved the Silverwing reveal. Such a beauty. I loved and hated the Silverwing reveal equally. I loved the reveal. I think the Draken Silverwing looks absolutely phenomenal. Looks beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I love the design of Silverwing. Love the design of Vermithor. And again, that's one thing that I can't knock. The design of the dragons in House of the Dragon, worlds better. Absolutely worlds better than the design on Game of Thrones. My only problem with the Silverwing scene, personally, was, let's see, where is it? Where's Silverwing? Here we got Silverwing, the beautiful Silverwing. Now, I did like the scene. I liked the claiming of Silverwing between Ulf the White. It was a little bit different, and it was kind of more akin to the Adam Velaryon claiming, where we see the dragon claiming the rider, not the rider claiming the dragon, kind of role reversal there. But my whole problem with this scene was what happened afterwards. Afterwards, we see Ulf the White and Silverwing just flying over King's Landing, having the time of their lives. Where's all the defenses of King's Landing? Where are all the scorpions? We saw earlier on, at the beginning of season 2, Vhagar and Aemond were flying over King's Landing, and instantly we saw the Kingsguard and the guardsmen start to get the scorpion ready because they weren't sure what dragon was about to fly over the city. And then all of a sudden in this scene, all the scorpions are just completely gone. All of the city watch is completely gone. Like, that was my only problem with this scene. They made a very good point to showcase those scorpions very early on in the season, and we've seen how deadly these scorpions can be towards dragons. So that was my only problem with this scene. We see no defenses being made when Silverwing is flying over the city. Yes, we see Aemond rushing to his dragon to go and meet Silverwing, but in terms of all of the defenses, all of the anti-dragon defenses that the city had set up, the scorpions, the archers, none of it. It's all just gone. Like, it was very strange how Silverwing was able to just fly over King's Landing like this, and nobody even attempted to shoot her down. So that was kind of my only problem with that. That was kind of my only problem with the scene. I think Silverwing looked great. Loved the dragon design. Looked absolutely beautiful. Looks like it's going to be a very formidable beast. But they just completely nerfed the scorpions. So that was kind of my only problem with this scene. Just considering how well they set it up earlier in the season, where they were about to shoot down Aemond and Vhagar as soon as they saw a dragon overhead. It wasn't until they recognized that it was Vhagar that they started to stand down. Clearly, they can tell this is not Vhagar and Aemond. Clearly, they can tell that. But yet we see no defenses get employed. So that was kind of my only problem with this scene. But it was fun to watch. I mean, watching Ulf and Silverwing was pretty cool. He had a fucking blast. I will give him that. He had a blast. Alan Actor was excellent as well. Absolutely. He was definitely one of my MVPs, without a doubt. Definitely one of my MVPs of the season. Alan Apol, great addition to the cast. Best was Rook's Rest and Daemon's Fear and Loathing. Worst was Rhaenyra/Mysaria kiss. Okay, interesting. Yeah, that scene did come under some scrutiny as well. A lot of people were pointing out that they thought it was just a little bit weird timing for Rhaenyra to kind of lay a kiss on Mysaria right after Mysaria just got done talking about how she was sexually abused. I did see a lot of people kind of criticizing that, which is interesting. I didn't really think one way or the other on it. It was just kind of it did feel a little bit forced, though. I will say that scene definitely did feel a little bit forced. And then when you find out later that apparently that scene was improv, maybe that's why it feels a little forced like that, because it wasn't originally written into the script, I guess. Let's see what else we got. Cannot wait for that Harry Potter series, says Radical Z. Awesome. And Ando says, excited for the Harry Potter. Hope it's good. Awesome. Yeah, I'll probably watch it. Again, I'm not very well versed on Harry Potter. I've never read any of the books. I've seen the movies when they first came out years and years and years ago. I don't remember a whole lot from them. It was just never a world that I really dove deep into. I was always more of a Song of Ice and Fire and Lord of the Rings fan. But when the show comes around, I'll probably at least watch it, see how it is. I'll give anything fantasy at least a chance, for sure. Favorite scene is any one of the Daemon DMT scenes. Hey, and that's awesome. That is awesome. If you guys love the Daemon DMT stuff, and I know a lot of people did, and I loved it at first too. I just feel like it kind of lasted a little too long. But I really enjoyed the Daemon scenes at Harrenhal for like the first 3 episodes or so. Really enjoyed them. Absolutely. My favorite scene was seeing Seasmoke claim Alan of Hull. My least favorite was the last episode with the Bannister mud wrestling. They gave that scene sequence too much screen time. And I do agree. I mean, the mud wrestling scene was kind of unnecessary. When it is the final episode and you only have a very limited amount of screen time, it's those kind of scenes that you would hope would end up landing on the cutting room floor to make room for some more important scenes. So yeah, I'm right there with you. I thought it was a little bit a misuse of some of the screen time, for sure. Yeah, prop dong scene is funny too. Yes, we dubbed it the hashtag prop dong. Yeah, we saw some dongs in season 2. We definitely saw some dongs, for sure. Larry's trying to talk sense. Aegon, I can't even piss without it running down my leg. I know, you felt so bad for him, didn't you? He just looks like such a defeated man in that scene right there. He's talking about having no penis anymore, can't even piss without it running down his leg. You felt for Aegon. You know, as horrible as Aegon has been in the past, you know, you did feel a little bit for him in that moment, for sure. I hope Night of the Seven Kingdoms is good and there's no White Walker stuff in there at all until we get to seasons 3 and 4. I hope there's no White Walker action at all, period. I feel like Dunk and Egg it's much different from House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones, or at least it should be, in terms of the story that Dunk and Egg tells. It's much more grounded, much more self-contained. There really isn't a whole lot of magical aspects to Dunk and Egg. There's no mention of White Walkers. The dragons are already extinct by that time. So there isn't a whole lot of magical aspects to Dunk and Egg. I'm hoping that they kind of keep it like that they keep it a much more kind of grounded show, this kind of buddy cop dynamic between Dunk and Egg. That is what the show should be focusing on, in my opinion, and I hope they do. We haven't seen a whole lot, but just based off the little teaser that we got for Dunk and Egg, looks pretty good. It does look pretty good so far. I'm excited for that show. Sucks that it's only going to be 6 episodes, but I'm still looking forward to it. Still looking forward to it. Let's see what else we got. Speaking of, what do you think had George R. R. Martin really pissed off? Mysaria and Rhaenyra, Alicent and Rhaenyra? What was it really about dragon legs? I definitely think part of it is about dragon legs, yes, because that is something that George has had a big problem with, even since the Game of Thrones days. That was actually a change Game of Thrones originally made. If you look back to like the first 3 or 4 seasons or so of Game of Thrones, the Targaryen banner is presented in the correct way with only 2 legs. But somewhere, I'm not exactly sure which season it switches, if it's season 5 or 6 or 4, right around there. But at some point, Game of Thrones just switches from 2 legs to 4 legs. And George hated it back then, too. And I guess he's just very particular about his dragon anatomy. And that is something that he has mentioned in the past. He's just not a big fan of dragons with 4 limbs and wings. So yeah, I do think George was a little perturbed by that. Was it the thing that he was most upset about? Probably not. Probably not. Again, I can't really speak. I can't really speak to George in his mind. I have no idea what he loved and what he was disappointed with. I can only go based off some of his past statements. He has said over and over and over again that he is not a big fan of shows changing source material. So I know we'll probably never hear it from him, but I have to imagine there are some parts of season 2 that George hates. He probably. Not all of it. I'm sure he probably likes a good deal of it. You know, seeing his characters brought to life in a very epic way, and in some ways, a very phenomenal way, especially during the first 4 episodes. Again, I really enjoyed the first half of season 2. It's only the second half that really starts to kind of fall off the cliff for me. But yeah, it's hard to know where George is concerned. But just based off his statements of not being a fan of shows taking liberties with source material, I have to imagine there's probably some things in season 2 that he doesn't like. But I doubt we'll ever find out what those are. We did get that one line when he commented on Maelor not being in the show and dubbed Maelor, #Maelor the Missing, which was pretty funny. So I get the feeling Maelor not being in the show was something George didn't love. But I don't know. It's I can't speak for him. I cannot speak for him. I did love the Vermithor scene. LOL, he was having a blast. Yeah, Vermithor was absolutely awesome. Actually, the scene where Vermithor burns and chomps is my favorite. Awesome, awesome. Yeah, Vermithor was awesome. It was really cool to finally see Vermithor, you know, full on, finally see Vermithor and just see how massive this dragon is. Because again, Vermithor is freaking huge. Vermithor is the 2nd biggest dragon in the world at this point behind Vhagar. Only Vhagar is bigger than Vermithor, according to George. And we can see that here, where Vermithor is not quite as big as Vhagar, but absolutely massive. And I love some of the shots that we got in this episode and how they kind of were paying some really good homage to the season 1 posters of House of the Dragon. I'm sure plenty of us have seen them. That season 1 poster of the younger Rhaenyra standing with Syrax behind her kind of looks just like this. So it was really cool that they paid homage to that season 1 poster with this scene where now we have the older Rhaenyra and a massive Vermithor behind her. So there were some really good scenes. Again, really great shots of Vermithor. I feel like I feel like what's his name was a little bit wasted in terms of Silver Danes. This character right here, the first character that gets burned by Vermithor, is Silver Danes. So I feel like it's a little bit of waste of the Silver Danes character, just considering, again, maybe it's just the book purist in me, that when I saw that they were casting Silver Danes, I was really, really hoping for a cannibal cameo. Silver Danes has one purpose in the book, and that is to get eaten by cannibal. So when I saw that they did cast Silver Danes, I was hoping we were going to get a cannibal sighting, but it looks like they had Vermithor do the deed instead of cannibal. But yeah, I did enjoy this episode. This was definitely one of the better episodes towards the second half of the season. Probably the highlight of the last 4 episodes was the Dragon Seed episode here. And this scene in particular, seeing Hugh kind of just throw himself at Vermithor's mercy when Vermithor is getting ready to kill this lady, Hugh just kind of comes out and sacrifices himself for this lady. I think that is the moment when Vermithor truly realized that Hugh was a worthy rider. The fact that he was ready to sacrifice himself for some random lady that he didn't know, I think Vermithor saw this and respected it. And then even more so when Vermithor kind of starts paying attention to Hugh, and Hugh shows no fear at all and just screams in Vermithor's face. I really think that is the act that sealed the bond between Vermithor and Hugh. But yeah, great scene. I did enjoy this scene. It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. And seeing Vermithor just lay waste to all of the dragon seeds was absolutely epic. Absolutely epic. And I like Hugh as a character. Hugh, and again, Hugh's one of the characters that they've made some changes to from book to show that I actually really enjoy. We don't really learn a whole lot about Hugh and his backstory in the book. We really only find out that he's the son of a blacksmith, the bastard son of a blacksmith. But here in the show, they are giving us much more backstory on Hugh, and I'm so glad that they are doing that. They gave Hugh a family. They gave him a proper backstory. They made him the son of Sarah Targaryen, which is so freaking cool. So I really enjoyed the extra character development that they gave to Hugh on the show. I'm looking forward to seeing where Hugh's character arc goes and how similar it's going to be from his book counterpart. So yeah, really enjoyed this scene. Really enjoyed this scene. Absolutely. Yeah, good stuff, guys. Good stuff. Storming of the Dragon Pit is the most crucial moment in the entire Dance of the Dragons, in my opinion. Ooh, interesting, Radical Z. Interesting. I would definitely put it up there as one of the most crucial. Yes, I don't know if it's the most crucial, but definitely one of the most crucial, without a doubt. Considering what happens during the storming of the Dragon Pit and the consequences therein, yeah, it's a very important moment that we need to see on screen. And I think we will. I mean, the storming of the Dragon Pit is one of those things that they just can't skip. They cannot skip that scene. That scene has to be in the show, and I think it will be. I think it will be. And yes, Ando, thank you for reminding me. Can't forget the GOAT, Ramin Djawadi, with the amazing score. Absolutely. I mean, if there's one aspect of House of the Dragon or Game of Thrones that never disappoints, it's the music. It's the phenomenal score that goes along with these episodes. Even when you look back at Game of Thrones Season 8, when the show was really starting to falter, the music remained as freaking good as ever. Honestly, some of the best Game of Thrones music comes in that final season. The Last of the Starks, which is a song that they kind of whipped up for the series finale in particular, when Jon Snow is leaving the Red Keep and heading back up to the wall, and we see all of the Starks kind of getting ready. We see Jon getting ready at the wall. We see Arya on the ship. We see Sansa at Winterfell. The song that's playing during that scene is some of the best music I've ever heard in Game of Thrones. It's titled The Last of the Starks. If anyone wants to listen to it, I would highly recommend it. After the stream, hop onto YouTube, search Game of Thrones Last of the Starks, and it'll pop right up. It is some of the best music he has ever composed, even if it happened during a season that was less than stellar. But yes, cannot forget about the GOAT. The music was phenomenal. The music was absolutely phenomenal. Cannot take anything away from Ramin Djawadi. He's, in my opinion, he's the best composer working in the industry today. Right up there with Hans Zimmerman and Bear McCartney. Some of the best composers in history, in absolute history. So yeah, really good stuff. Really good stuff. Yeah, I agree. I don't know what is up with that. I don't know how she got that close. I don't know what that is pertaining to, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. There actually was Scorpion shot at Silverwing. I didn't see any Scorpion shot at Silverwing. I'll have to go back and look. I didn't see a single Scorpion shot at her anywhere. Again, maybe I just didn't see it, but if there was a Scorpion shot at Silverwing, they certainly did not make enough emphasis on it, because I didn't see anything. I mean, Silverwing was just flying around without a care in the world. If there were Scorpions being fired at them, even Ulf didn't know, because Ulf was just up there smiling, having a blast. So if they were trying to convey that Scorpions were being fired at Silverwing in that scene, they did a horrible job of it. Absolutely horrible job of it. Because it was very nonsensical, just very nonsensical in my opinion. And that's where some of the plot starts to kind of break down a little bit towards the second half of the season. You start seeing some of these decisions that just don't make any sense, narrative and story-wise. And again, I want to love this show. I never go into any show wanting to dislike it. That's just not me. You see a lot of kind of, people out there that kind of just hate watch things. That will never be me. Any show that I watch because I genuinely want to love what I'm watching. But again, I can't ignore some of the problems that I felt were happening in season 2 of House of the Dragon. There were a lot of problems. As well as as great as the first 4 episodes were, it was kind of almost undone with how bad the last 4 episodes were. But just my opinion. But if they were trying to convey scorpions being fired in that Silverwing scene, they did a horrible job, absolutely horrible job of it. Rhaenyra's actress is better in interviews than the show. What does that say about the writers? And that's the thing. I think Rhaenyra, when Rhaenyra has good writing, definitely one of the best performances on the show by far. Like, again, you look at episode 1 of season 2, seeing Rhaenyra finally come to terms with the fact that Luke is dead and seeing its severed dragon wing, you can just feel the emotion coming out of Rhaenyra in that scene. One of the best acted scenes in the entire season. So I really feel like it comes down to the writing. When the writing is good, these actors and actresses absolutely knock it out of the park when the writing is good. But for me, a lot of the problems with House of the Dragon begin and end in the writer's room. So yeah, you're right. What does that say about the writers, MK? What does that say about the writers? Again, there's been some really great writing on this series, and at times there's been some really bad writing in the series. So yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see where season 3 is going to go. I guess we will have to see. And yeah, this is another, this was my first instinct as well. When we first see Otto is being held captive, that was my first instinct as well, Joseph. I think that the Beesberries got him, and they are still angry for the killing of the Lord by Kristen Cole. That was my first instinct as well. Like, when I saw him in that dungeon, I'm like, okay, he must have been caught when he was on his way to Old Town, and that leaves very few possibilities in terms of the few houses that are supporting Rhaenyra down in the Reach. The Beesberries probably being the most prominent, because they're really the only ones that have been set up on this show. They haven't really set up the Tarleys very much on the show. So yeah, that was my kind of first instinct when I saw he was being held. I thought, okay, maybe House Beesbury has him in some kind of dungeon somewhere. But then when I saw that other shot of, it was a totally different angle of Otto down in the dungeon, and it looks exactly like the dungeons of the Red Keep, that's when I started to think, wait a minute, maybe he never made it out of the Red Keep. Maybe he's right down there in the dungeons of the Red Keep. I imagine that would probably be the last place anyone would ever look for Otto. So it's kind of an ingenious place to hide him if that is the case. And that is kind of just the thing I could picture Larry's coming up with, to be honest. But yeah, I don't know. Again, my first instinct was Beesbury as well, but after seeing this cell on this shot, seeing these bars, seeing the middle strip, seeing where blood was in the Red Keep, you got pretty much the same cell right here. I don't know. If he's not in the Red Keep, it's probably Beesbury that has him, but after seeing these two shots, I'm starting to think that he might still be in the Red Keep. And considering what he's wearing, he is still dressed in the exact same outfit that he left King's Landing in. When we last see Otto, when he's getting dismissed from the king, as Hand of the King, and when Otto is leaving King's Landing, this is the same outfit he has on, which kind of leads me to believe that he never made it out of King's Landing. He might be down there in those cells. But who knows? Who knows? I guess we will find out. That's another change that I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with in season 3, for sure. For sure. Best was Sea Smoke claiming Adam of Hull. Worst was Rhaenyra Mysaria Kiss. Excited for Harry Potter. Awesome. Let's see what else we got. Yeah, they needed an episode 9 penultimate battle scene. They did. Again, I truly feel if season 2 would have gotten the full 10-episode treatment, episode 9 could have been the perfect penultimate battle episode with the Battle of the Gullet popping off. And then you have episode 10 being the final episode in the season, and maybe that one kind of leading into the fall of King's Landing, or maybe even having the fall of King's Landing ending season 2 off on. It just would have made for a much more fulfilling and much more complete season 2 as a whole. It wouldn't have felt this anticlimactic as it does feel. And again, battles aren't exactly what makes a show good. You know, good writing makes a show good, whether it's good battles, good dialogue, whatever. Good writing is what makes a show good. You don't necessarily need these big battles to make the show good. But on the other hand, this is the Dance of the Dragons at the end of the day. The Dance of the Dragons is a straight up war with dragons. So you kind of got to have the war part as well. So yeah, it looks like they're really getting ready to kind of go full bore from season 3 on. Based on some of Ryan Condal's statements that he has made, it seems like they're really getting ready to just put pedal to the metal from season 3 on. And I hope they do, and I hope they they pull it off as well as they possibly can. Again, I do still have hope in the show. I haven't lost hope in the series. I don't have as much faith in Ryan Condal now as I did at the end of season 1. But I still have some faith in the show. I'm still very, very much looking forward to seeing where this story goes and how it progresses. Because it is such a phenomenal story. The Dance of the Dragons is so unique in and of itself that one of my problems with it is I just wish they would stop tying it to the Long Night. They keep kind of hitting us over the head left and right with the Long Night. And maybe it's just me, but I don't need to constantly be reminded of the greatest disappointment in TV history. I feel like The Dance of the Dragons is a good enough story in its own right. The Dance of the Dragons has enough merit. Let it stand on its own merit. You don't need to keep tying the show to Game of Thrones. Let The Dance of the Dragons just be The Dance of the Dragons. That's my opinion. That is my opinion. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do. It is going to be interesting to see what they do. Episode 8 had the worst writing. It kind of did. It kind of did. In terms of the worst written episode, episode 8 might be the worst written episode. And if we look on Rotten Tomatoes and all of the other rating sites, the season 2 finale of House of the Dragon is the worst rated episode of the series and the worst rated episode since the Game of Thrones finale. So it seems like universally, a lot of fans really did not like how season 2 ended. You look at all of the scores for all of the episodes in season 2, they're right around, low 90s, high 80s, and then boom, you get to the final episode and it's like a 50, like just drastically lower than every other episode this season. So it seems like a lot of fans really did not like the finale. But that's understandable. That's fair. I mean, fans are totally have the right to like or not like anything. That's your right as a fan. And that's what we like to talk about here on the show. That's why you guys know me. I never turn away any opinion. All opinions are welcome. If you love the show, if you hate the show, if you loved and hated it, all opinions are welcome here. We just like to know what you guys think. It just creates a fun discussion talking about some of these things and seeing what we loved, seeing what we didn't love, and seeing where the show can maybe improve in some areas. And there's nothing wrong with talking about some of the problems of the show. There's nothing wrong with critiquing a show. Now, of course, you don't want to be just an asshole and just bash on things. That just kind of makes you come off like the dickhead at the end of the day. But if you're giving honest and fair, constructive criticism on a show, don't let anyone tell you that that's wrong. Everybody has the right to critique a show any way they want, apart from being a dickhead, of course. But yeah, we're going to see, guys. I guess we are going to see from season 3 on, it's going to get pretty interesting. Looks like it's going to get pretty interesting. Again, they have a lot of stories still left to adapt and not a whole lot of time left to do it in. If they are dead set on only doing 4 seasons, then at the very least, seasons 3 and 4 need to be a full 10 episodes. We need to return to the 10 episode format. We've seen what happens with 8 episodes in season 2. It's very unfulfilling. The story very, very much suffered because of it, and the overall quality of the show seemed to suffer because of it as well. So hopefully in season 3 and in season 4, they return to the full 10 episode arc, and they can really kind of hammer the rest of this story out and have it end on a high note. At the end of the day, if they nail season 3 and they nail season 4, then I would very much consider this series a huge success overall. Having one bad season out of 4 isn't too bad. If they can kind of pull out of this nosedive in season 3 and really return to that season 1 form of storytelling, then they absolutely can still finish the show on a massive high note and hopefully erase some of that bad taste a lot of us had in our mouths from the ending of Game of Thrones. And I feel like season 1 went a long way at doing that. And I heard a lot of people saying that exact same sentiment, that after they watched season 1 of House of the Dragon, it really started to erase some of that bad taste we had in our mouth from the finale of Thrones. And then season 2, not quite as much as a whole. But again, they can definitely, if they nail season 3 and 4, I think the series will be a smashing success overall. But they have a tall task ahead of them. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They have a very tall task ahead of them, adapting everything that is left in only 2 seasons. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. I cannot wait to see where the story goes from here. Really looking forward to seeing Daeron the Daring. We got that awesome look of Tessarion, the Blue Queen, at the end of episode 8, which was a really awesome foreshadowing for season 3 to come. I think a lot of us are very much looking forward to seeing Daeron the Daring. He's been one of the most highly anticipated characters for a very long time. Cannot wait to see Daeron make his appearance. And even more than Daeron, I cannot wait to see the Winter Wolves in action. They set up the Winter Wolves pretty good in season 2, where Cregan Stark first kind of introduces them in the first episode, talking about the gray beards that he has that are ready to march. And then here we are, 7 episodes later, we actually see the Winter Wolves crossing the Twins, heading down into the Riverlands. And I really hope that this is Roddy the Ruin. This character just fits the bill of Roddy the Ruin perfectly with his age, with the axe that he's holding. I really hope this is Roddy the Ruin. So yeah, that is what I'm looking forward to in season 3. I cannot wait to see the return of House Stark. I cannot wait to see the Winter Wolves in action. I really hope some of these characters really get some good characterization and really get some good dialogue. I hope that they're not just background characters and background warriors. I really hope they really characterize some of these Winter Wolves, in particular Roddy the Ruin. Definitely looking forward to meeting Red Rob Rivers. We have some really interesting battles that the Winter Wolves are going to be taking place in season 3. So bring it on. Bring on the return of House Stark. Cannot wait to see that. Again, cannot wait to see Daeron the Daring and all of the other massive big events that we have to look forward to in season 3. Aemond getting to Harrenhal. It's going to be very interesting to see Aemond and Alicent Rivers, the dynamic that they have between them two, considering the kind of relationship that they have already set up between Daemon and Alicent. It's going to be very interesting to see the contrast between that relationship and how Aemond and Alicent kind of get along. So I'm really looking forward to seeing Aemond eventually arrive at Harrenhal and seeing some scenes between him and Alicent Rivers. So yeah, we got some fun stuff to look forward to, guys. We definitely have some fun stuff to look forward to. Even though season 2 might have not ended on the best note, if the writing is better in season 3, they can definitely pull this thing out of a nosedive, in my opinion. They can definitely do it. But they got to give this thing the care and the attention that they gave it in season 1. You look at season 1, it was, for the most part, phenomenally executed. Apart from some changes that were kind of weird, season 1, for the most part, was pretty good. So if they can return to that quality of storytelling for season 3 and 4, then I definitely think they still have a chance to knock this series out of the park. But a lot of this is riding on season 3. How will they respond? And yes, we need more of the North. Hell yes. We need more of the North. Absolutely. Yeah, honestly, just seeing the Winter Wolves tear up some Lannisters would be so fulfilling because we never really got to see a good Stark-Lannister battle in Game of Thrones. Very good point. Very good point. We see the War of the Five Kings is pretty much centered around House Stark and House Lannister, but we don't actually get to see them fighting each other in battle on screen. A lot of those battles happen off screen. So yeah, it'll be pretty cool to see the Winter Wolves clashing with some of the Lannisters in season 3. Definitely looking forward to seeing that. Definitely looking forward to seeing that. And yeah, Alice about to rock Aemon's world. Yes. Yes. Whoever wrote Helson's Lake scene should not be brought back for season 3. Oof. Harsh, Kiwi. That is harsh. That is harsh. But again, Very fair. All opinions are welcome here. Have faith, not of the 7 though. Absolutely, I am right there with you. You could definitely have some faith, but my faith lies in the old gods and House Stark. Nothing against the 7, but I am definitely more of a Stark, old gods kind of fellow myself. But yeah, there we have it, guys. There we have it. I am looking forward to it. I haven't lost hope in the show. I'm hoping that they can kind of, again, pull out of this nosedive in season 3. We have some really big events that are coming up in the books that should be very interesting to see how they adapt in terms of the Gullet, Fall of King's Landing, Butcher's Ball, things like that. Should be very, very intriguing to see where they go and how they adapt some of these things. So definitely still looking forward to season 3, but I really hope they return to the quality of storytelling that season 1 gave us. There we have it, folks. There we have it. Let's see what else we got. Will you do streams for Night of the Seven Kingdoms? Absolutely. Absolutely. We will be covering Dunk and Egg or A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. We will be covering that show just as extensively as we cover every other show here on the channel. We'll be doing tons of live reviews, tons of live pregame shows, and of course, I will be doing episode reviews for every episode and breaking down the trailers as well, like I usually do. So yes, we will definitely be covering Night of the Seven Kingdoms just as much as we covered House of the Dragon. Definitely. And I am really looking forward to that one. Again, it looks like they're doing some interesting things with Dunk and Egg. I know we only got a few seconds of a teaser trailer, but the few seconds of Dunk and Egg that we did get did look pretty good.
You and I?
I'm Sir Duncan the Tall.
Hell yes. Bring on Sir Duncan the Tall. Dunk the Lunk. Thick as a castle wall. Looking forward to it. Definitely looking forward to Night of the Seven Kingdoms. And yes, we will be covering all of that. Absolutely all of that. And that should be coming not too early in 2025, but I'm hoping anyway, that Dunk and Egg could potentially be hitting our screens right around maybe spring 2025, probably no later than summer. I'm thinking summer, the latest, we will have Dunk and Egg, Night of the Seven Kingdoms Season 1 on our screens no later than summertime, is my guess. But yeah, we will be covering all of that and more, of course. From Season 3 is just around the corner. That is going to be the next big show that we are covering here on the channel. And again, I highly suggest to all of my awesome House of the Dragon people, get out there and check out From. There's been 2 seasons so far. Season 3 is starting at the end of September, so you have plenty of time to catch up. From, you can find it on MGM Plus, and you can find it on Amazon Prime, or if you are in the UK, it is available on Netflix for people that live in the UK. And again, in my opinion, it is the best series that is currently running on TV, even better than House of the Dragon. It's called From, just simply From, F-R-O-M. It originates on the MGM Plus streaming service, but again, you can also find it on Amazon or on Netflix if you're in the UK. Highly recommend getting out there, checking it out. It is such an interesting and intriguing series, and it really challenges you as an audience member. You go away from watching an episode From really thinking about what the heck did I just watch and what did it mean? And From is one of those shows that you very much benefit from multiple viewings. I try to watch each episode at least 3 or 4 times before I do my review because there's so much that happens in the show of From, both in the foreground and in the background, that you very much benefit from a second viewing because you will definitely pick up some things in the background that you maybe didn't pick up on your first go around. So highly recommend getting out there, checking out From if you haven't already, because we will be diving headfirst into From here on the channel. And of course, I will also be covering Dune Prophecy when that show comes out as well. I am a huge Dune fan. Absolutely love the Dune universe. The Dune books are probably my 3rd favorite book series overall, behind A Song of Ice and Fire and All Things Lovecraft. I'd probably put Lord of the Rings ahead of Dune, but I'd probably put Dune 4th at the latest. But I love the Dune series. Really looking forward to seeing what they do with Dune Prophecy. Some of the trailers look pretty good already. So we will definitely be talking Dune when that comes back, when that comes around. And of course, we will be diving into all things A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms in 2025 as well. And when Shogun Season 2 eventually returns, we will be covering that as well. We had a blast covering Season 1 of Shogun. I am a huge fan of Japanese and samurai lore and feudal Japan era as a whole. Love that time period. It's such a rich and fascinating culture, and it's probably the closest thing we have to real Game of Thrones in our real world history. So yeah, we got a lot of really awesome shows to look forward to over the next year or so. So we'll be diving headfirst into all of those. But next up on the docket is From Season 3. So get out there, guys. Check out From Seasons 1 and 2. I promise you, you will not regret investing some time into that show. There's been very, very few people that we've introduced the show to that didn't like it. Just about everybody we've showed it to has loved it so far, and for good reason. It's such a phenomenal show. So get out there, check out From Seasons 1 and 2, and come back and hang out with us for the Season 3 premiere of From, which is starting September 22nd. So again, plenty of time still left if you guys want to catch up on From. And until next time, I want to give a big thank you to each and every one of you. You guys have been so supportive throughout our coverage of House of the Dragon Season 2. I cannot thank each and every one of you enough. You guys have shown us so much support, and it really does mean the world to me. So can't thank you each enough. The biggest thank you, I mean, you guys in the chat, you are the lifeblood of this channel. And I genuinely look forward to going live and hanging out with all of you guys. So I really look forward to seeing some of you coming and returning for our From coverage, because that show is going to be a wild ride. And I promise, if you get invested in From, you will not be disappointed. You will love it if you give it a chance. So give it a chance. Get out there. Check out From Seasons 1 and 2 and come back and hang out with us for the Season 3 premiere on September 22nd. And we will be doing extensive coverage on From Season 3 as well. So again, big thank you to each and every one of you for everything that you guys have done to support the channel. I cannot thank you all enough. And until next time, stay safe out there, ladies and gentlemen, in this crazy world we find ourselves in. Be kind to one another. And as always, keep those tinfoil hats on, folks. And I will see you on the next one.
Kings. Fire. And blood. Dreams didn't make us kings. Dragons did. The threat of war looms.
There is no war so hateful as a war between kin.
I mean to fight this war and win it.
I will not be thought weak. I wish to spill blood.
And no war so bloody as a war between dragons.